Hi, and welcome to the A Little Spoon Kitchen. Today we are going to be making one of my favorite meals, a tradition that I do every Christmas Eve with my family, sometimes Easter, pierogi. We are going to be doing a sauerkraut pierogi, and we are also going to be doing a farmer's cheese and potato pierogi. These are, I guess, quintessential, the more traditional flavors. The recipe that I do have online, if you are looking to follow along, and you want to kind of get the ingredients, make these with me at a later date. If you're finding this after the live, I also have an Americanized version of a cheese and potato, which uses Velveeta and American cheese slices. It's creamy, it's delicious, slightly tangy and salty, really nice. So if you want to do that one, you can use the farmer's cheese and potato version and basically follow these steps, but just use different cheeses. So you can kind of follow along with any way. Now, I want everybody who is joining me here today live, hello, welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me. Some of you will be cooking with me, so I will be pausing, having conversation with you, making sure that you understand what's going on. If you have any questions, if you found this video at a later date and this live has already happened, still welcome. I'm very glad that you found this. I hope that if you are on a journey to make your own pierogi at home, that this is helpful to you. You will notice me looking off to the side. I have my chat over here that will be asking questions, and I will be talking to them and talking to you at home. I like to fill in and try to add information for maybe why I'm doing something or how to do a technique, what you're looking for, both visually or texturally, by your touch or taste or whatever. I like to kind of add information as I go. But sometimes my chat has really good questions that I did not cover. And so I like to kind of do these as a live. And then you may have a question at home that somebody also had a question at home. And then you don't have to send a comment and try to figure out if, how soon I can answer or any of that on YouTube. But if you do have a question, please do go ahead into the comments. If you have a question while you're making it at home, you can go ahead and type in there. I do try to check it at least once a week. I'm in there kind of checking for comments and things like that. So I will be able to respond to that. They're making some jokes already. I think because there's kind of a lot that's going to happen today, this is probably going to be one of my longer streams. We have 2 fillings to make that are going to be hot when we finish them that we have to kind of let cool. And we also have to make the dough, roll it out, let it rest, all that kind of stuff. And then make a few pierogi. So we're going to be bouncing around a little bit today. I'm going to start with the potatoes. We're going to get them all peeled and get them boiling. And then while those boil, I'll start on some of the other stuff and then kind of go back and forth between. I guess we can go ahead and get started. If actually one of the people that is with me today, who will be cooking with me, mentioned that they have the American cheese slices, but they did not, I guess, find the Velveeta, and so they have some Colby Jack. If you are using a block cheese, that is absolutely fine. You can get something that's like kind of melty, maybe like a Fontina, or the Colby Jack tends to be like a really nice melty cheese. That is a-okay, but I would suggest that you let it come to room temperature, that you both grate it, and then you let it come to room temperature so that it melts better into the potatoes. If you take a block cheese right out and you're trying to slice it and get it to melt into 1.5 pounds potatoes, it is not going to happen the way that you think it will, especially because Velveeta just melts into oblivion. There are ways scientifically, chemically, that you can kind of make that a little bit better for yourself. If you wanted to make a kind of cheese sauce and add it in using like sodium citrate or something like that, that is an option. But like, we're being simple here today. So just grate the cheese, let it come to room temperature, and then it will be ready for you by the time that you get to it with your potatoes. Let's get started. This is it. These are the ingredients. Everything that I need today, aside from the butter, which is behind me, will make like 50 pierogies. I'm making 1 batch of dough today. If I were going to do 2 fillings, if you go into the recipe online, I've listed essentially what you need for a single batch of dough. A single batch of dough will make somewhere between 40 and 50 pierogi, and then you've got enough filling to make the equivalent that goes with it. So essentially I can make 40 to 50. If I wanted to do a double batch, I could essentially make, because I'm making both of these fillings today, I could essentially make 100. But I'm actually going to kind of just play around a little bit more today, especially with the sauerkraut. I'm not going to do an exact measurement because it's literally one ingredient, and I'll just talk about the technique of cooking it down in that. But I am going to make a full batch of our potato and cheese here. So let's get started. I'm going to peel my potatoes, and we're going to get them into some water, and I'm going to give a nice little heavy salting to that. Does anybody have any questions yet? Actually, I do have my own. I'm streaming today both on YouTube and through my husband's Twitch channel. I do have my own Twitch channel, to the person who asked. It's just easier to stream on this one. But I do have my own channel. I think I've streamed on it once. Stream and then piggyback to yours. I probably could do that. I feel like this is my man channel. I do feel like that. When I go in during my husband's streams and just sit and chat for like an hour, like this is my channel too. Okay, so we're just gonna peel. We're looking for about 1.5 pounds. It's about 680 grams of potato to be like, okay. You've got skin on your potato that you're taking off, that takes off weight. Then you're gonna boil it, which adds a little bit of weight because of the water, but then you're gonna rice it, and you're not gonna get all of the potato out because let's face it, that's not what happens when you make anything that gets stuck to the sides of bowls, cookie dough, any of that kind of stuff. It's never perfect. So I always like to do just a little bit more weight than you think you need for the 1.5 pounds for that 680 grams final. And then also I will say this, like this very much is not a science. Pierogi is not a science. Pierogi is an art. You measure things with your heart. You make it taste the way that you want it to taste. If you like to have a more of a potato flavor, that is fine. You can like have less cheese. If you want it to be a little creamier, you can add a little bit more creme fraiche than necessary. You can add extra farmer's cheese, like whatever you want to happen is exactly what you can have. You just have to make sure that the fillings kind of stay solid, don't get really liquidy. Obviously, it's hard to make a dumpling by hand when the filling is too wet. So that's really all you're looking for, is to have something that you can essentially form into a Play-Doh-like ball and shape and then completely turn into a pierogi. So not anything too difficult. But the measurements don't need to be quite exact. They just need to be around that number and to your liking. Okay, I'm gonna rinse these real quick. Okay, do you want me to pull it back? Okay, I've got a tablecloth here that I was gonna use. I don't need all of it, to be honest. Can I just like fold it in half? I have a tablecloth here that I was gonna set the pierogi on. I'm gonna flour it. It just keeps the pierogi from sticking. If you have them on like a granite surface or like a flat surface, plastic even, like if you have a fold-out table and you're making it as like a family unit, you need to have a tablecloth down with flour on top of it, or they are going to start sweating against the surface and sticking to the surface that they're on. So the cloth keeps them from doing that. So I've got that set up over here. Okay, I need a knife. That's very important. Okay, and now we're actually gonna do some relatively large chunks. If you wanted to, you could just As long as your potatoes are essentially the same size and cook at the same rate, you can have them whatever size you want them to be. I'm gonna do kind of these like half potato sizes. The larger the chunks, the longer it takes to cook them. I understand that it takes a long time. I know people like to speed up the process by making their slices smaller, and it definitely does that. But the more surface area you have, the more water you're going to get into the potato, the less potatoey they're going to taste. And the less fluffy they're going to be. So we're kind of doing a kind of halfway point. So I've just got a potato right here. I'm going to cover it with some water, add in some salt, and get that going. Always start your potatoes with cold water or tap water, room temperature water. If you start it in boiling water and you toss them into boiling water or almost boiling water, the outside is going to cook far before the inside cooks all the way, and they're going to get, the water's going to get really starchy. They're going to start to break apart. It's going to get gummy because they're going to be overcooked on the outside, and we don't want that. Actually, sometimes I think about doing the potatoes at like a medium on this burner and then bringing it up to high after like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because the induction cooktop heats so quickly that I'm almost like, is it almost like I'm boiling it from the start? So yeah, I'm gonna put that up and we're gonna just add some salt. And I'm gonna let that just cook back there behind me. Once it starts to get, you're not gonna want the surface to roll at all, okay? So we're looking essentially to have, they kind of get like frothy on top and it'll shift around almost like it's getting ready to boil, but it's not gonna fully boil. If you see a couple bubbles here and there, that's fine. We just don't want the surface tension of the top of the water over the potatoes to start like really moving and rolling around. I need a third camera. No, I mean, there's nothing interesting going on back there, and I can always pull, what I'll do, here, this is what I'll do. So I'm gonna let that get started, and then I will pull that up front here, and I will show you guys kind of what I'm talking about so that you can see. I also do have another cooktop over here. I have a single induction burner that I will bring over here when I'm doing the sauerkraut. So you will get to eventually see some cooking straight to this camera with that overhead. Are you really gonna do that? Okay, you can't see it because it's underneath the ha 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 ha. I thwarted you. Can you actually see it? Kind of. It's dark. I could turn the light on behind me, but that would mess the lighting up. Look at that. Potatoes and water because nothing's boiling yet. Okay. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get the sauerkraut chopped up. I'm not going to use everything that I have here today. I just bought a bunch of different variations of cans and things so that I could talk about it because I am me and we are us. Okay, so this is what is called for in the recipe. It is a 32-ounce, 908-gram jar of sauerkraut. However, you will notice Silver Floss is the brand that I usually get. It's really the only one other than like a store brand that I can find in my grocery stores. I think that it is probably the most popular one. I don't know what is available in like the UK or other states or anything like that, but I do know that I think our Walmart has Silver Floss, and so does the Publix, which is a regional grocery store in the southeastern region of the United States. So Silver Floss is what I typically get, but this is just naturally fermented, shredded sauerkraut. That's all I got. This is not what you're looking for. This one with the blue label, so I've got a little black label here, blue label, it says Bavarian on it. This is what you're looking for. I could not find this in the 32-ounce size, in the 908-gram size, so I had to get it in a 16-ounce, 454 grams, so about a pound. size. Okay, got 2 of these. This makes 1. You need 3 of these. 3 of these to make about 50 pierogi. If you want to make less, make less. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. This is literally a 1 ingredient filling. You do exactly what you want to do. Okay. They also come in cans. This is a 14-ounce can, 408 grams. So you're going to need more of these, and it's not going to come out perfect. You're going to have to probably buy too much and then just have like a little extra. Not a horrible thing, especially if you have pork in your house. Just have it as a side once it's done cooking. And this also, Blue Label, says Bavarian on it. You're looking for it to say Bavarian. Why Bavarian? It is sweeter. The naturally fermented one here with this black label is not sweetened. If you can only find this one, that is okay. That is okay. We're fine. Because here's what you're going to do. You're going to take an apple, and you're going to cut up an apple, probably 1 whole apple for all 3. Maybe an apple and a half, but not too much. You're going to take off, peel your apple, chop it into really fine pieces, right? Obviously, we're not including core and we're not including seeds, okay? None of that. And then that is going to get cooked with the sauerkraut when you're toasting the sauerkraut in your saute pan. It is going to add the sweetness that is not in this one, okay? So it's okay if you cannot find the Bavarian style. You can add some sweetness with some apples. Okay, moving on. I don't have apples in my house, or I would show you. We literally ate the last apple yesterday, so I just get to explain it to you. But like, finely dice it, get them in as small pieces as possible. They'll break down, they'll melt in, it'll get nice and sweet and tangy, and it'll be really nice. Only 50. 50 pierogies is enough. 50 pierogies is enough. I feel like a good, if you're looking for a good way to kind of measure, I feel like somewhere between 6 to 10 is like a solid, like, nice lunch to dinner, like somewhere in there. 6 to 10, depending on how much you typically eat. If you're like, hey, I like to have a meal, but I don't want to feel stuffed, 6, 7 is a good number. If you're like, no, I want like a full meal, I want to be full, or I eat, I tend to eat a lot when I eat because I am a bigger person, or I exercise a lot and I need the calories, whatever that looks like, you could probably go up to 10 and be like plenty happy. So this is essentially like feeds a family of 5. The sauerkraut, maybe you could eat more because it's not as filling as the potato, but that's what it is. Okay, we're starting to see some movement, so I'm going to pull this over here. Can you turn the camera on real quick? So yeah, so my cooktop has already got them essentially at boiling, so that's fun. So if you can see, we've got some of this kind of foam, the starched foam on top. I want this to kind of just sit there. That foam is going to stay there. We're not like skimming it off or any of that kind of stuff. And it is going to just kind of just sit and gently kind of like move back and forth, maybe look like it's kind of like just shifting a little bit, but it's not going to fully boil. I'm going to turn this to about a mid. We're down to medium. So I had it at like a medium high heat, and now I'm just bringing it down because I don't want it to be boiling. Everyone's like, you can eat 50. Come on. Okay, let's get this started. I think I'm going to open up. I know you guys, I'm the only one in my family that likes the sauerkraut ones, but I do want to have enough that you can see like a full pan getting toasted. So I think I'm going to make just a third of the recipe, and I'll do the about 908 grams or so, the pound here of or 32 ounces, sorry, 2 pounds of sauerkraut. And let me get that going. I'm going to move this to the side so you guys can kind of see what I'm up to. So essentially what you want to do with your sauerkraut is you want to nest a colander. I really like these like fine mesh colanders. I feel like the ones with just the holes and all of the like metal, like sheet of metal with like random holes in it. Just you like have to turn it sideways, trying to like shake stuff out of it. And like this just is really nice for draining stuff. What you're gonna do is you're gonna nest your colander into a bowl, and then you're just gonna kind of dump it out. You wanna catch all of the juice that's in the jar, or as much of it as possible. You don't have to have a lot of it. You use it to deglaze the pan as you're toasting, because it will stick to your pan at some point, and you won't be able to kind of like break up that fond, because you're gonna be kind of scraping and moving as you go. And when you get to a point where you like can't break the fond off the bottom of the pot, and you've just got too much toasted to the bottom of, or the pan, when you've got too much toasted to the bottom of the pan, you can then use some of the juice, so that you're not taking away the flavor by using water or some other ingredient that will add sugar. We don't want to add extra sugars to the pan, because that will just make it like burn to the bottom of the pan even faster. And so using the juice from the jar or from the same can will be helpful for that. Oh, Bob Jones, is it your birthday? Happy birthday. Yeah, we do a cooking stream on the first Sunday of every month, pending other plans. I think we've missed 2 where they had to be like the second Sunday because we were out of town. But so far we've done pretty well. Come on. Okay. You really don't even need like all of the liquid. I just like to keep as much as possible just in case. But you do want to make sure that this gets dried out as much as possible. So it's kind of like if you were gonna make like tzatziki, and you wanted like the cucumber to get kind of like wilted, you add salt to it and you kind of let it kind of break down, right? And then you squeeze as much of the liquid out as it is possible. If you're making like cheese, butter, any of that kind of stuff, this is kind of the same concept, right? Is you want it to be as dry as possible. And like I said before, like we're literally encasing this filling in dough. So if you're going to add moisture to dough, it's going to start breaking apart, right? It's water soluble. And we don't want that to happen. So again, as dry as possible. I might have to move to the sink for the rest of this. I've got plenty of juice in this bowl to use for deglazing. And I know it sounds like it's a lot. Like I'm sitting here on, 2 pounds, 2 jars of this, of this sauerkraut. Dang, I'm making a mess. But it does end up, not only are we taking out, like, look how much liquid we've already kind of taken out of these. Not only are we reducing the volume, both the volume and the weight by squeezing the liquid out of this. Once it starts cooking down, it will also do that. Not as much as like mushrooms, but you're going to see that there will be less than you think that there will be. That sounds like it's boiling behind me and I don't want it to, so I'm just gonna turn around and check that out. Oh no, it is. Turn down. Okay. We've lowered the temperature. Okay. This is pretty good. I don't hate it. We're not gonna get much more out of this. And again, like I'm cooking this on a stovetop. You don't need to like put it in cheesecloth and let it drain for an hour, or like squeeze, everything out until it's like bone dry, because you are going to be toasting it. So it's not, you're gonna be literally toasting it, adding liquid to it, moving it around a pan. It's not that deep. Just be simple with it. And I keep rinsing my hands off and getting extra paper towels. Ugh, I have kitchen towels here, so I don't do that. And then I don't use them. Okay, set our juice aside. I'm gonna get a plate to put underneath this so that we don't end up with liquid on my countertop. Okay, but the next thing that I'm going to do is put this into a food processor. You can do one of two things. So you can just take it in little mounds and you can chop it right here on your cutting board. And you can get it into little pieces like this and just chop it down. It's already shredded, but the thing about the sauerkraut is you want it to be like teeny tiny pieces, because if you get, say, a long piece like this, okay, this isn't even long, this is like half the size because I've already started chopping. But like say you have a piece that's kind of like this, right? Okay, we're looking at a little more than an inch there. You have a piece like this and you've got it all in to your circular round of dough, and then it's kind of sitting out. Like, so say, let's do a little example here. So say this is my dough. I've got my little dough here that I've cut. And this is sitting like this, and I'm folding the dough over, and now this piece is stuck in between two pieces of dough. What do you think is going to happen when we go to boil that? Water is going to seep in here where the dough is not sealed, and it's going to open right up, just fold completely open in your pan, and then you are going to have sauerkraut all in the water, and you've completely ruined that specific pierogi. So we don't want that to happen. We chop it down really finely so that you don't get shreds of the sauerkraut kind of sticking out in like weird angles, and keeping it so that your dough doesn't get sealed. So really this is like nothing to do with flavor, really nothing to do with texture. It's just kind of like a utilitarian and like smart way of making sure that you can get your pierogi sealed properly. But yeah, so you get, basically, you can do this, or, which is what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a food processor, I'm going to put it in here, and I'm just going to pulse until I've got all of those pieces kind of shredded uniformly and small. Okay. Still sounds, no, we're good. There we go. Another thing that you can do if you want to sweeten up your sauerkraut, you can add some cooked onions to it. Make sure that they're slightly caramelized and translucent, and then those can just get blitzed along with these guys, and that'll add a nice sweetness to it. My dad added apple to ours, so that's just kind of what I'm used to. But onion is also a good option. I have been told, I've been told by people online that mushroom is also common, sauerkraut and mushroom as a filling. So that might be something else if you'd want to do. Again, you have to cook all the moisture out of the mushrooms beforehand because you don't want them to cause you problems with your dough. Okay, I'm gonna turn this on and pulse. Apologies, it shouldn't be that loud. It's just gonna be as loud as a food processor. Yeah, not too loud. We don't have anything hard banging around. It's not like I'm making peanut butter or something like that. Let's take a look. Nope. Need one of those slap chops. Does anybody remember slap chops? Cutting it down like this is also going to make the volume kind of like look like less, just because it's not going to take up as much space. Okay, a little bit more, almost there. I don't want to turn it into mush. I just want to make sure that it's chopped. These are getting into good. We're about 75% of the way there. You can see that we've got some larger pieces like these that I want to make sure are cut down, but most of it is kind of small the way that I've chopped it. It's faster to do it this way. It's honestly cleaner to do it this way. Sauerkraut tends to kind of like stick and fly like all over the place. So this ends up being easier to do it in a contained space. Okay, that looks right. Okay, yeah, we're good. Okay, this is what I want. I'm there. I'm actually gonna just put this back into my little guy here. And then we can start, let's see. We can start on, do I want to start the dough? I think I might actually continue doing the sauerkraut because I still got about 20 minutes on those guys. Let's see. Let's check them. So your dough is going to have to rest for about 20 minutes. Yeah. Your dough's going to have to rest for about 20 minutes. No, I'm going to do what I originally intended. We're going to leave this kind of sitting. I'll come back to it. I'll leave it in the top here. Put this in. I'm going to make the dough first and let it rest because it's going to take a little bit to make the dough as well. It comes together pretty quickly, but then you need to make sure that you develop enough gluten in it, and then you have to let the gluten relax so that you can roll it out and it doesn't spring back on you a lot. So we'll get that started and give it plenty of time to rest. I'm just going to set this here. We're going to undo this guy and move my stand mixer over. Okay. It's already on. Fun. Okay. Okay. And now I'm also going to clear a space so that I can start rolling as well. Or at least have a space that I can be prepared to do that. Okay. We're all together. I need 2 eggs. Let's see, 2 eggs. I like to use large eggs. These feel larger than normal. Large eggs are usually somewhere between 50 and 55 grams a piece. These look like they're probably closer to 58. They're pretty big. So we'll see. We might have to add a little bit extra flour than usual. But you're looking for 2 eggs, a teaspoon, which is about 2.5 grams of kosher salt. I use Diamond Crystal kosher salt. We literally talk about this in every cook-along that I do. Diamond Crystal kosher salt has a flakier crystalline structure. If you are going to use different brands of salt, okay, so a different brand of salt than the Diamond Crystal kosher salt, I suggest, highly, highly suggest that you weigh your salt. If you weigh your salt, you can even use table salt. You can use table salt. You can use any brand of kosher salt. You can use a Himalayan sea salt. You can use a gray sea salt. You can change between anything as long as the weight is correct. But the different structures of salt will, stick with me, fit in different size volumes. So if you use a table salt, it's a super, super small crystal. And if you do it by volume and you do a teaspoon, it's going to be like double the amount of salt than what I use because my salt flakes are much bigger and less fits into that space. So even something like going between, like using a kosher salt between Morton and Diamond Crystal, you're going to be using like 30% more salt using Morton than you would if you were using this brand of salt. So just weigh your salt, or figure out a way. If you're cooking by taste, maybe is great. Not great with dough. It's kind of hard to do that, mainly because you really shouldn't eat flour that has not been cooked. But it's best just to weigh. Just have a kitchen scale, weigh your ingredients. It just makes things a lot easier. And that's what I'm about to do right now. So I like to use double O flour, where you're going to need 4 cups, which is about 500 grams. I use King Arthur. Mostly just because it's what I can find in my store. I've found a couple of other brands that do double O flour. All of them have worked very well for me. It's really just the specific type of flour that I like to use. Because it's finely milled and they use soft wheat when they make double O specifically, it just ends up being a softer dough, which I really like, especially for pierogi. When you have kind of soft fillings, right, and there's nothing that's crunchy or flaky or whatever, it's really nice to have a dough that kind of melts better and isn't chewy or isn't like harder the way that, say, like a ravioli can kind of have, like to the teeth, right? Al dente. Like it has a chewiness to it that I find is a little bit too much when you're working with literally like cheese and potatoes. Like it just is better to have a dough that is going to be like just slightly meltier, slightly softer. So we're gonna do 500 grams, 4 cups of our double O flour. If you want to use all-purpose flour, you can. That's honestly what my family uses. I just prefer using double O when I'm making them by my lonesome. But all-purpose flour is also fine. Please weigh your flour. It will be about the same, but it won't be exactly 500 grams if you're using all-purpose flour. Somewhere in here. Let's see. Oh, too much. Have I ever tried doing samosas? No, but I really want to. I love samosas. Okay, got 500 grams. Okay, I'm gonna set this aside. I do have all-purpose flour out here today, but that all-purpose flour is going to be used mainly for scattering and keeping everything from sticking, or when I'm rolling, just to keep, again, the dough from sticking to the countertop. But I am going to be using it just because it's cheaper, and most of the dough is made with the double O, so it'll stay relatively soft. Okay, we've got our eggs. I'm gonna need a cup of this, so I have to measure this out. Am I Polish? Yes. Yes, I am Polish and I am Czech. Okay, Lindsay, are you ready to start working? Aside, I guess you started your potatoes already, but are you ready to start the dough? I'm about to end up making a mess over here with this water. Yes, yes. Do I have people actually cooking with me in Twitch right now? I'm seeing a bunch of yes chefs. I don't know if you guys are just being facetious or if you're actually cooking with me. Oh, okay. Is it okay to do half the recipe for the dough? Yes. Yep, that is absolutely fine. All of this is scalable, which is really nice. Okay. I guess we're doing a teaspoon. Okay, and then a cup of water, 240 milliliters of water. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do like a little bit of the flour just to kind of get it going, and then I'm gonna add as it spins. So we're gonna do about a third of the flour to start. Lock this guy in. Drop our eggs in. Our salt. And some of our water. Honestly, all of our water. Just dump that in. Okay. And we're gonna get it going. And I'm gonna kind of just push the flour in. The fun thing about the dough hooks, right, is that they don't spit flour back in your face when you add too much at a time. Love that. If you wanted to, I believe in the recipe that I have, I use a whisk or a beater first just to get everything broken up and really mixed and get that gluten going before I add the hook in. I honestly feel like I'm experimenting a little bit today. This is how we make it on Christmas Eve with my family, is we just use the dough hook the whole time. And I thought I would experiment. I prefer to get everything really well mixed first and then adding the dough hook later, but less to wash, right? I'm gonna check on the potato. Almost. Maybe 5-10 minutes left on the potatoes. Flour weighed, all set. Nice. Cool. No. Yeah. You need to find an alternative to the sauerkraut, or just make yourself actually enjoy that. Make the cheese and potato one. And if you want to be super extra, you can make your own farmer's cheese. I can only find farmer's cheese in my Publix grocery stores. I cannot find it at Walmart. I've not found it. It may be at another, like a Whole Foods or a Fresh Market or something like that. I guess if you're in Texas, you might find it at an H-E-B, maybe, because they have like everything. You may find it in a Wegmans or an Ingram's, depending on where you are on the eastern side of the United States. I'm not sure how popular this is in stores. I usually find it over by like milk, sour creams, ricottas, like that kind of a thing. They're like usually over there. This is Friendship Dairy's Farmer Cheese. Okay. This is what we use when we make it. It's a really soft cheese, but you can make it. You can make it really easily. If you just do, I believe it's 2 liters. So about 8 cups of whole milk, and you scald it. So you're going to get it under boiling. You don't want it boiling. No more than 190 degrees, somewhere between 140 and 190. I think 190 is about, it's like 89 C. I think I wrote it down somewhere. Let's see if I wrote it down. 85 C, 190 degrees, 85 C. So under 85 Celsius, no more than 190 degrees. You're going to get your milk nice and scalded. Okay. You're going to remove it from the heat. You're going to add in a half a teaspoon, so 1.2 grams of salt. And you're going to add in 4 tablespoons of either vinegar or lemon juice. Okay. So it's about a 1/4 cup, think 60 milliliters by volume. Okay. Goes down into it. Then you're going to stir it for just to get it kind of all going, and you start to see kind of particles come, and then you let it sit for like 20 minutes. Just let it chill. And it's going to curd up, and then that gets strained. Okay? And you're going to take your curds, put them in a cheesecloth. That you have to twist them up and just let it hang, and let all of that moisture kind of drop out. And then you can go somewhere between 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how dry you want it to be, and then you have farmer's cheese. So if you want to make it as not difficult, you can do it. But that is up to you. Oh, it is important to not use metal. Metal will react with your lemon. Use a wooden or a silicone. Like it's gonna make it taste funky. Use a wooden or a silicone spatula or utensil when you are stirring. Okay, well, we're going back to this. I forgot about it for a second. Do we have any questions from someone who is not cooking, from someone who is cooking? All right, and we're starting to come together. I'm gonna turn this off and just make sure I scrape the sides down and that it really actually incorporates. There we go. There we go. While that's getting ready, I'm just gonna dampen this a little bit. You wanna put a damp cloth. So I'll put like flour down and then I'll have a damp cloth on top of it to make sure that while I'm, so A, it can rest, and then B, while I am using it, I'm gonna use somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2 of it at a time of my dough. And so I wanna make sure that it stays covered with something that is wet, or it stays covered with something that will not let it release moisture. So a cling wrap or cling film or press and seal or whatever brand of cling wrap you have. You're gonna wanna cover it to make sure that it doesn't start to dry out and get like crusted on top of it. So we're gonna go ahead and do this. I can smell those potatoes. I think they're done. I see you. Almost. This stuff that's showing on screen right now is probably more stuff than the entirety of my whole kitchen. I cook a lot. I cook a lot. All right, so we're got a nice damp, not fully, right? We're not like fully soaking this cloth. We're just getting it damp enough to keep the dough. Okay, let's finish this off. Keep the dough hydrated. Oh no, it did it. That's okay. We're gonna be rolling out in a little bit, so I don't care if I got flour on my countertop as long as it didn't hit me in the face. We're fine. That was a nice poof. I wasn't expecting it. Okay, I'm going to move this stuff aside because I'm not going to need it anymore. Okay. Let's clean our workspace up a little bit. We're almost pulling away from, so I don't know if you guys, you can see it. Okay, cool. So you can see that it's pulled away from the sides of the bowl, but it's still slightly attached at the bottom. Okay. That's okay. I'm just letting it go until it gets, so it's also, it's a little like kind of ragged. I don't know, that's not the word. But like it doesn't have enough gluten. So you can see like if I pull on this, it kind of comes apart. And it's not smooth, it's not silky or stringy. It's kind of just looks like it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Shaggy. It's a little bit of a shaggy dough and I don't want that. So I'm gonna let this keep going until I see that it gets a nice smooth outside and it's gonna be almost pulling fully away from the bowl. If you're using all-purpose flour and not double O flour, you might need a little bit of extra water as well. I'll make sure that I show you guys what it looks like when it's ready. Okay, and then potatoes are almost done. So I'm going to get another colander. I have a small one and a big one. So I'm going to get another colander ready in my sink. I'm going to check on my potatoes. Which are almost, gosh, they're almost there. Almost there. We're going to keep going just a little bit longer. Almost there. If you are wondering, Jesus, that feels crazy. 4. 4 is the setting, the dough setting. It doesn't say it on a lot of commercial mixers or stand mixers that I've used, but 4 is the dough setting. Do not go higher than 4. You can add in ingredients at your 1 or your 2 or whatever levels, but 4 is specifically is supposed to be calibrated to be the dough mixing like speed on any stand mixer. Can you use any other type of potato than russet? You can probably use a Yukon Gold as well. I wouldn't recommend using anything waxy because you're looking for a nice smooth filling, and you wouldn't get that with waxy potatoes. They're meant to hold shape. They're good for like potato salads, but not for like a mashed potato. Anything you would use for a mashed potato, you can use for this. I will also say though, that Yukon Golds are going to be buttery, and they're going to be less light, less fluffy. They're going to be more buttery and dense. So it kind of depends on how dense you want the filling to end up. I prefer russets, but you could definitely use a Yukon Gold. Anything you would use for mashed potatoes, you can use for a pierogi. Break the rules, Carrie, go to 5. No, I'm actually at like a 3. 4 felt a little scary. It was a little too fast. All right, I'll stop it for a second so you guys can see where we are. You can see that it's smoothed out quite a bit. And now I can pull it a lot further away. And it's still too shaggy, but I can pull it further away before it starts breaking. So we're getting to a better place. Ugh, that's 4. 4 feels fast. I also feel like I should put this. Actually, I'm going to do that. I have a. This is what we use. The foam that you can cut and put into like drawers and stuff or on shelving is what I use to keep this thing from sliding all over the damn place when I'm using it. So we're going to just do that. I agree, Casey. I'm on the cusp of everything being ready at once. This guy here is this is my main mixer for a really long time. I don't know if you can see. I've got another bigger one back there, but it doesn't do as well with smaller batch things. This is a commercial one. But this is what? How old is this one? 15 years old? I think this is 15 years old at this point. Yeah, 15 years old, give or take. They don't make them like they used to. Oh, thanks, Snorlax. That's nice. I really like the hair. I like the color a lot. This is Old Faithful right here. I need to get this serviced though. Oh, now something else to keep in mind, if you don't have a stand mixer and you still want to make this dough, you absolutely can. It is, you can knead it, but you can also treat it the way that you would treat like a focaccia or a sourdough, or some other, like a brioche where you have, or pizza dough even, where it's like a little bit more hydrated than something that you would typically like knead on the counter the way you would knead a ravioli dough. You can let it sit and then do stretch and folds. Let me turn this off. You can let it sit and do stretch and fold. So essentially you would get it to the point, like, you know, mixed in, everything incorporated, right? As well as you possibly can, and then let it sit. Get your hands a little bit oiled or a little bit of water on your fingers, and then you're going to essentially, you take the dough and you kind of pull it from the bottom up and then turn your bowl. And you just kind of bring up around to the middle, kind of like this over and over. For a couple of minutes, 1 or 2, nothing crazy, and then you let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes, and then you come back to it. Gluten is always going to get stronger the longer that it's sitting. That's why when you do cold proofing, you get more structure, and then you get a little bit of fermentation, which also gives you some added like tang and flavor. But gluten will continue to develop even if you are not kneading or stretching or manipulating your dough. So if you do not have a stand mixer, you can just let it rest. It will take longer to make. It will take longer to get to the point where it's got enough gluten formation, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. People did make dough and did make bread before stand mixers existed, but it will continue to make. It just takes longer, but it is possible. Okay, this is where I want it to be. We're gonna stop our dough here. This is not like gonna be perfect window pane or any of that. It doesn't need to be. It is going to rest. We're gonna roll it out. It just needs to stay soft. We don't have to have a ton of structure in the dough. We're not baking it. I'm not trying to get like, you know, good crumb or any of that. This is not gonna be like bread. But let me go ahead and, I guess I don't know if you can kind of see. So you can see that we've kind of gotten to a point where I can stretch this out. It's still slightly shaggy, but it's so much smoother than it was before. And I can pull it and stretch it, and it doesn't immediately start breaking. That's what we're looking for. I need something to scrape this out of this guy. I'm going to flour and the surface of my countertop, and then I'm going to dump this out to rest. We're going to pull the potatoes at this point because they should be ready, and then we're going to rice them and use a secondary bowl to make the filling. If you wanted to, you could just, honestly, I will make it easier on everybody. Instead of using a second bowl, I'm just going to clean this one, and I'm going to make the filling in this one. How's that? That way we can be like, you know, not the person who has a fully stocked crazy ass kitchen. Flour. I'm going to put my flour up here. I'm just going to put a generous portion of flour. You don't have to put it up there. Generous portion of flour. I'm going to maybe untwist this from the stand. There we go. And we're just going to scrape it out. Okay. I guess let me get this. Whoop, sorry, that was loud. Okay, so here's our dough. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly manipulate it as best I can and get it right into the flour. This does have a lot of hydration in it. That's on purpose. It just means that I can add flour to it, and it's not gonna get really hard. It's on purpose. Let's wash this bowl out. I'm gonna be off camera for just a second. Okay. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the beater attachment on. My bowl's a little cold. We're gonna put the beater attachment on. I'm going to dump the potatoes into my colander in my sink. Let them sit for a second and steam off a little bit. And then I have a potato ricer. It's basically like a ginormous garlic press, right? So you've got holes in the bottom of it. You got this kind of piece that mashes down and pushes them, and it'll push all of the potato out through here. If you do not have a potato ricer and you like to make mashed potatoes and you like to make, honestly, mashed potatoes, gnocchi, if you have any interest in learning how to make gnocchi and making really good ones, and you want to have smooth mashed potatoes. If you're like, why can I never get all the way smooth mashed potatoes? It's so frustrating. It's so whatever. You need a ricer. Just get yourself a potato ricer. They're not ridiculously expensive. And if you are a potato person, this is absolutely what you should have. This is how you get the smoothest, creamiest mashed potatoes and potato fillings, gnocchi, whatever that looks like, that you can have is a potato ricer. Do it. I promise you will not regret it. I promise. We've got potatoes. I've got cheese. Let's do some of this. I should only need about 2 of these, but like I said, we're kind of going to measure with our heart a little bit today. I'll list out as I'm talking. I'll give you the measurements that are in the recipe, but I'm just going to do this to taste. So, okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to bring it over here so you guys can see what I'm up to here. We've got our potatoes all done. I've got my bowl here, and I'm going to rice my potatoes right into it. When I do this with my family, we don't put them through a potato ricer. If you're doing the American cheese and potato version of this recipe, right now I'm doing the farmer's cheese and potato. Farmer's cheese and potato always ends up a little crumbly, so this isn't absolutely necessary. I just really like to have a creamier filling, so I do this. But we don't actually put this through a ricer at home when we're doing the farmer's cheese and potato ones. The American cheese and potato ones, you can use a ricer. I don't feel like you need to, just because there's so much meltiness going on with the Velveeta and the American cheese that it ends up smoothing it out anyway. Now, for the, I know that I have someone here cooking with me who's doing the American cheese version. Because you do not have Velveeta cheese, I would still suggest using the ricer, just to ensure that everything is as smooth and creamy as possible. This is something that you're going to want to do quickly. because when you rice it, it's gonna add extra surface area to your potatoes. You don't just have like hunks of potatoes that are getting mashed together. And when you add extra surface area, it's gonna cool faster. So even though it's immediately creamier and you don't need to kind of keep beating it, it will get like, the texture will be better, it'll be less gummy, it'll be lighter. It does lose its heat faster, which means if you're attempting to melt cheese the way that you are when you're doing the American cheese and potato one, you're gonna need to make sure that you work relatively quickly to keep the potatoes as warm as possible. For the farmer's cheese one, it's a crumbly cheese. There's really not a lot of melting going on. So it's something that you don't have to worry about as much. Okay. I need my knife. Okay, we're just gonna smooth off the bottom there. And then make sure that all of this gets tapped out. Okay. And that's it. Doesn't take very long. Super simple to do. Now we're going to start adding in our cheese. Oh, the beater. I forgot about the beater. Where did I even put it? Didn't even take it out. Okay. Beater is on. Cheese is going in. Are you with me, Lindsay? Are you with me, Bethany? I think both of you are cooking with me today. Okay, so farmer's cheese. It's really crumbly. I guess you can see kind of what I meant, right? So like essentially you're letting the milk curdle and then you just get all the moisture out of it and it basically turns into this, right? So I can buy it at a store. I don't know if you have access to it, but if you follow the recipe that I listed earlier, you will have something good. Just break it up a little bit when you toss it in. I'm gonna do 2 of these. And then typically it's the potatoes and the farmer's cheese and that's it. But I started adding some creme fraiche or some mascarpone. If you wanted to do cream cheese, I guess you could, but I feel like cream cheese is a pretty strong flavor when compared to farmer's cheese. Farmer's cheese is almost flavorless. Like it's slightly tangy because you obviously added vinegar to it, right, to get the curds created, or lemon juice. So like it's slightly tangy, but there's not a whole lot going on. It's a really fresh cheese, as you can see. And the fresher a cheese is, usually the milder it is. So if you're adding in a cream cheese, then it's not, it might start to taste a little like cream cheese. So I prefer doing the creme fraiche or like a mascarpone. Ricotta could maybe work in that situation, but that's also kind of a crumbly cheese. But it could be helpful if you're looking for just like a little bit of extra creaminess. This is my preferred. You're adding the cheese, yay! Okay, everybody is together. I'm gonna add about 1/3 of this. My best by date on this guy. Oh, so that's good. Okay, looks a little off. I'm a little concerned. Oh no, she's still good. Okay, you're still okay. So I'm gonna do about 1/3 of this container. This container is an 8-ounce, 226-gram container. You're going to need about 1/3 cup, so about 75 grams. And I'm just gonna dump that in. That's a little bit more than a 1/4 cup. That's about 1/3 of a cup. Okay. Okay, and we're gonna mix this, and then I'm going to add some salt to taste. So I'm gonna let this mix. It's going to stay crumbly. Lindsay, for you, it should get creamy and melty and a really like smooth, cheesy potato kind of thing. The farmer's cheese and potato stays crumbly. It does not get melty, it does not turn smooth. You're just kind of gently mixing it just a little bit. That's really all that it is. That's essentially the filling, but I do want to salt it now, so I want it to taste nice. If you are planning if you found this video and you do want to make your own farmer's cheese at home and use that for this and really, really go from scratch, you can use that recipe. You could also try adding a little bit of buttermilk and get even more tang into it, but that is an up to you thing. That is a to your taste thing. Oh, that's already salty enough. That's perfect. Okay, we're done. Okay, I'm done. That's it. That's my filling. Super easy. I'm gonna let this spin just a little bit longer, just texture purposes. And then that's it. Super simple. Okay. Okay, so this one is done. And honestly, like ricing the potatoes is why this happens so quickly. Everything is already so broken up that you don't have to like crush through any of the other ingredients or like any of the potatoes and like break them up into smaller pieces. Like it's already done. So it's basically just mixing everything. Like I could essentially do the farmer's cheese one with like a spoon or a fork or a spatula of some kind. You could do it without the mixer. I just prefer the mixer because I think it just incorporates a little bit better and faster. But it's unnecessary. I'm almost wondering if I do want some more creme fraiche. I know my family will eat more of it if it's creamier. How do I feel about this? I might add a little bit more. No, I'm done. I'm done with it. We're good. Okay, so we're going off the recipe. My family really likes the American cheese and potato ones. We're non-traditionalists, which is fine. It is a very good flavor. It's my family's favorite flavor. I'm an old curmudgeon like that. I want to have the, the way that we always made it when I was a kid. Okay, mixer, we are done using the mixer. Nice. Oh, thanks. Okay, so somebody asked our AI bot here, what is farmer's cheese? And this is the reply that it gave. Farmer's cheese is like a chameleon of cheeses, versatile and mild. It's a fresh cheese made from curdled milk. Think of it as a blank canvas for your culinary creations, perfect for both sweet and savory dishes. Written exactly how I expect AI to write a description of farmer's cheese. Got to have all of the adjectives, or it's not good. So I need this to chill. When you're doing fillings for a pierogi, you want them to be cold, or at least room temperature, because you don't want them the heat will create moisture, which then mixes in with your dough, which makes it really hard to work with. It's also just really hard to work with wet fillings in general. And so you want them to chill. And essentially what I'm doing right now, because I feel like this is the only recourse. I can maybe like flatten it out on a tray, but I'm trying to create as much surface area as possible. And I'm basically just like making a huge well in the middle of this potato and cheese. I'm like scraping it up the sides of the bowl and kind of pressing it down so that it's thin and not like in the bottom of the bowl in like one big mound. I should use a spatula for this. If it's in the bottom of the bowl like that, then it's not going to work as well. I finally got rid of all of the paper towels that I've been using. Okay. So this is me just trying to chill this faster. Typically, we would make these fillings the night before we make the pierogi, so they're like nice and chilled, and they solidify a little bit better. So if you want to do this the way that like we actually, oh, that's way better. We actually do this for our Christmas Eve feasts. You would essentially make this and then just have the tub covered in the refrigerator overnight, and you can take it out the next day when you go to make the dough and make all of the pierogi. Okay, so this is pretty, I think like we're pretty smoothed out here. I think this will chill pretty quickly. So I've got this potato bowl that I've made here. And I'm just gonna cover this and put this into my refrigerator. I feel like I wonder if I can use this. I got these the other day because I really wanted to stop using so much plastic wrap to cover stuff that I don't have lids for. Let's see. Probably good enough. Might not work. That's good enough. Okay, covered. Sticks to the smaller bowls. This sticks really well to my soup bowls. That's good enough. Put this into the refrigerator where there is absolutely no space. Let's do this. You guys can sit and listen to me rearrange stuff in my refrigerator for a couple of minutes. Oh, sorry for all the loud noises. Okay. Next, sauerkraut. So now we're gonna go back to the sauerkraut. Set this back here. Okay. If you decided to make the sauerkraut, this is what you're gonna do. We're coming back to you. Okay, so I've got a single burner cooktop here. This is also induction. My stovetop is induction. I love induction. I will tout induction cooktops forever. They are amazing. I will never live without them. I know a lot of chefs and cooks prefer gas because you can have an open flame, and an open flame is really fun to play with, of course. But I just really like the precision that induction gives me. And I really like that it's kind of more child safe. I do have 2 kids. And if something boils over or burns, I can turn off a burner and it is not immediately cool, but immediately stops heating. And most of the temperature is just like carryover because the surface was once hot or the bottom of the pan might be warm. But I can almost like have something on high, turn off the burner, remove the pan, and then touch the surface without immediately burning. Like I can literally touch the surface it was on and I won't get burned unless I'm like holding my hand down. And it's just, I don't know. In my eyes, it's just better. Things heat quicker. You just have to have the right pans, which is kind of unfortunate. But I use stainless steel and carbon steel for most of my cooking, so it's like it's not a big deal to me. This cord is being weird today. Let's try going this way. Okay, Lindsay, you can feel free to just chill while your potato and cheese pierogies or your potato and cheese filling is chilling, your dough is resting, and you can just relax. I guess if everyone wants to see the dough, this is my dough. We're still on a really nicely floured surface, just hanging out. we're going to get into our sauerkraut, which I put somewhere right here. Okay. So we'll set up this station next. I prefer to use a flat-bottomed spatula. I do like using wood. I don't like metal on metal. Not great for me. But the flat bottom and it being a harder material than, like, say, a silicone really allows you to scrape when it starts kind of toasting to the bottom of the pan, which it will do. It will do it. And it is supposed to happen. You are not like, don't freak out. If it feels like it's happening too quickly, too often, you can turn your temperature down a little bit, but it is supposed to toast to the bottom of the pan. Don't worry about that. It is necessary. I'm going to get a ladle. You can use a spoon, you can use a ladle, you can use whatever you want, just for when it comes time to deglaze this guy. I've got my sauerkraut juice there. Okay. And then I've got my sauerkraut. So I'm just going to get this guy going. I am going to get this really hot. I like to use a stainless steel pan. I think you can abuse them more because, like I said, it's supposed to kind of toast and create a fond. And if you're doing that, scraping a nonstick pan like that with the amount of pressure that is needed, I feel like that seems very not okay. Just don't treat your nonstick pans like that. Do gentle things in your nonstick pans. High heat, a lot of like pressure and scraping kind of stuff. Stainless steel, carbon steel could be okay, but stainless steel is your best bet. If you want to use an enameled, oh my God, cast iron, like a Dutch oven or something like that, that is also something that you could use, that you can use and abuse those things a lot. So if you want to use a Dutch oven, an enameled Dutch oven, or stainless steel for this purpose, those are probably your two best options for a cooking vessel. A good time to do dishes. It is, Lindsay. It's a great time to do dishes. All right, that's getting nice and hot. Almost there. It will stick. There's still quite a bit of moisture. This isn't like you patting off and searing something. You still do want to have this pretty high, and I do have some skittering. I want to have this a high enough heat that it will immediately start to toast and cook off. There we go, we're ready. Okay. Whenever you use stainless steel, you're going to want to heat your pan up to the point where you can splash water or liquid into it and it skitters around and doesn't immediately evaporate. And then you can drop heat and start adding and stuff. It will make it more nonstick or fully nonstick depending on what you're doing, depending on what you're cooking. Dump this guy in. But this has so much moisture in it that it will stick. It's supposed to stick. It's part of the flavor process. Do not worry about it. I'm going to say that a million more times. A million. Does anybody have any questions while we sit and we toast this? My workspace almost feels clean. It only feels clean because I'm just moving everything off to the side, though. Who are we kidding? Okay. So I'm just going to kind of let this sit. I'm going to let all of that moisture kind of pull out of it. And when I smell it start to get a little nutty, I'll start moving that around. But if you can just continually move it. You don't have to wait for anything to happen. This just helps the browning kind of happen faster. But I'm just gonna let this chill. My family gets to smell sauerkraut now. Did I go to culinary school or just learn by experience? Experience. My family cooked my entire life. I went to college and then had to do it for myself. So started cooking for myself and for friends, kept doing it, never stopped loving it, and now it's what I do. So, uh, I've contemplated going to doing a culinary program, but I read and research so much for like blogging and recipe posts, and because I want to know enough that then I can explain it to somebody who knows even less than what I know. Like I know enough to know that I don't know everything, but I would love to know everything and I would love to experiment more. But I've put so much time, effort, energy, research, knowledge, thought into learning all of this stuff that I just don't know. I know that I would learn in a culinary program, but I don't have the time. I've got 2 kids at home. I've got this is a full-time job. And I, just maybe one day. I think that I would benefit more from like culinary experiences and like learning individual things from people than I would from, or other chefs than I would from like a full course. Because I know a lot of the basics and stuff like that already. And I would love to have kind of like small group or solo work with people, which is why collaborating is so much fun. Buying new cookware like pots and pans. Should I just go with a good stainless steel set and call it a day? Might get a cast iron. The cast iron is a great option. It holds heat really well. It's great if you eat a lot of like seared steaks and things like that. I wouldn't suggest cast iron be your only pan if you don't already have one that your family has had for generations and it's so seasoned that you can't mess it up. Carbon steel and cast iron take a while to season enough to the point where they're nonstick. So if you are like just getting something new, you don't cook, like you're not cooking every day, multiple things a day, and you really just need something that's going to solidly get you by whenever you want to make something, I would tell you to get stainless steel. I would say get a 12-inch and a 10-inch. I guess I don't know if you're at Noble. I'm not sure where you're from. I'm giving in inches, but convert if you need it to be in metric. A 10-inch and a 12-inch stainless steel pan, and then I would tell you to get an 8-inch egg pan, which is non-steel, wanted to be a non-stick that you can use for eggs. You could do eggs in a stainless steel, but you're gonna want a smaller thing for eggs because you don't want them to spread out a whole bunch, especially if you're doing something like sunny side or over easy or whatever. So it is good to have a smaller pan that you can use for like pan sauces or eggs or things like that. And non-stick is just an easy thing to have when they're small. And then I would tell you to get, I'm not sure if you do like soups or stews or things like that. I would tell you to get a minimum of a 5-quart Dutch oven. And honestly, those are probably the only pans that you're going to need. If you want to get a mid-sized pot, kind of like what I had my potatoes in, I don't know how many quarts that is. That's probably a 5-quart. If you want to do like 3.5 or 3.5 and up, just for like stocks and soups and stuff like that, your Dutch oven can also double as like a stock pot. So like do one, like I would say the Dutch oven would be great for stock pots, soup pots, things like that, and then do a mid-size when you're cooking potatoes or pasta or anything of that sort. If you do want to do like a saucepan, something like a 1.5 quart, you can probably do that. So like, okay, recap. 8-inch egg pan, nonstick, 10 and 12-inch stainless steel pans, one Dutch oven that's at least 5 quarts or higher, enameled Dutch oven, that's 5 quarts or higher for soup and stock, a mid-size pan for potato or a pot for potatoes, that's probably about a 3.5, and then a 1 to 1.5 quart for sauces and pot, and that's all you need. I would say that's all you need. If you want to do a 10-inch, I believe this one is a 10-inch. If you want to do a 10-inch stainless steel saute pan, which has flared edges the way that this one does, this is a saute pan. And then on the 12-inch, you get a sauce. I think it's called a saucier pan or something like that, where like the edges actually come up and are straight up. That can be helpful for like shallow frying, or actually having some kind of a sauce, like if you're doing like a thicker sauce, a pasta sauce or whatever, you can cook that in there in the same way that you would use a pot. So that can be super versatile if you want to just have like the sides be differently shaped for different uses. But you really don't need more. That's like what? 1, 2, 3, 6, 3 pots, 3 pans. That's all that I use. Sure, Noble, you're welcome. See all the steam? This is so much because there's all that moisture, right, is coming off. And you can kind of see, I guess we do have the camera on. You can see I've got a little bit of browning down here, but I don't quite have like any actual fond or anything yet. If it starts to smell like it's getting a little bit too toasted, you'll be able to smell it. It'll start smelling a little bitter. And you can just add in some of the liquid here that came with. But I'm just kind of scraping at this point. Now that I'm starting to see some brown bits, I'm scraping. You can already see, I should have kept, actually, I mean, we've got this. I was gonna say I should have kept some so you could see the original color, but I have the jar here. And you can see like we're already starting to get a little bit of browning in our sauerkraut. Like I would not want to scrape like this with a nonstick pan. Like stainless steel is just so much easier, and it's really easy to deglaze, it's really easy to clean. I'm getting a little bit of a fond there. I might deglaze in a minute or two, but it's not really necessary yet. And I could also, if you're really nervous about it, and you don't feel like you can keep up well enough with it, and you don't want to add extra moisture and then cook it out and all that kind of stuff, you can always keep the temperature a little bit lower. It'll still brown. It'll still cook. But you can also see the difference between, like, you can see it's starting to get even flakier because we're cooking all that moisture off. So it's not kind of holding to itself anymore, and it's not as wet. So it's going to kind of be flakier and looser, which is great when it comes to filling the pierogi and having like a really nice light flaky texture. Not so great when you're actually going to shape the pierogi. So I will show you how to do that when we get there. But it is the sauerkraut are definitely the harder of the pierogi to form and shape and keep together than the potato. The potato just like, you can basically shape it like Play-Doh. Sauerkraut, not so much. Any Dutch oven tips? Are they hard to care for? No, they're not hard to care for. They're really easy to care for. Stick them right in your dishwasher. They're fine. Or, you know, if you want to hand wash them, you can use like a scrubber if you want, I guess. But like, they're so easy to take care of. You don't have to worry about like lemon or tomatoes or like acidic ingredients in them the way that you have to worry about that with cast iron because the enamel, it protects it. They're so easy to take care of. I wouldn't worry about it at all. I would say, you've never put a Dutch oven in the dishwasher? It's probably not the best thing that I could do. But I will say, that's probably like, it's probably something I would be a little bit more worried about if I bought a lower end one. I do have Le Creuset because I'm a snob. They're just, Staub and Le Creuset are just such good brands. They make such good products. Like, there are some brands, I think, I want to say it was like Caraway. There's a couple that came out with like their own Dutch oven, like some producers and brands came out with their own Dutch ovens. Here, I'm going to do this because I'm starting to see that turn a little darker than I want. So they came out with their own, and the enamel actually starts to chip off like really fast. And so it's better to hand wash those than it is to put them in the dishwasher. But I've had my Dutch oven for a decade, and I've seen no wear and tear on it other than like the bottom of it, which is supposed to happen. So these are Le Creuset. These are they're croquettes. They're not tiny Dutch ovens. They're actually like, they're meant to be like for like creme brulees and like little pot de creme and like other kind of like pastry applications. They're not supposed to be for salt. I just use them as salt and sugar sellers because they're cute like that, and I don't know, I'm obsessed with them. It's just like the perfect size for that kind of, for me to use it that way. Yeah, most Le Creuset is dishwasher safe, so I don't really think about it. Mine go in the dishwasher. I don't have to be worried about the enamel chipping off because it's just such a good product. A 6-pound salt bowl. They're not that big. They're little. That's little. Okay, we're getting to that point. Do some on this side too. Turning the heat down a little bit. Now that everything is really well heated, the sauerkraut is really well heated, the pan's really well heated. I don't need as high a heat to maintain the same temperature. So I'm just going to bring it down just a little bit. It also lets me talk longer with you guys because I don't have to pay attention as much. But you can see, look how different that the starting color is with where we are now. We're a little more than halfway. And then hopefully what I'll be able to do is I'm actually going to lay this out on a cookie sheet so that it chills really fast. And I'm going to pull the potato and cheese out of the refrigerator and see how well we've chilled that, and we can maybe start actually rolling out the dough and shaping some pierogi. There is nothing wrong with a cheap set of pans. I honestly, like, for me, I know that I have these higher quality things, but I have these higher quality things because I'm lucky enough to afford them, right? And B, I know that I'm going to use them. Like, I want it to be an item that I can use for decades, right? So I'm able to afford a more expensive piece up front in a single purchase, and then let it last me longer than, say, buying a $16 pan or something like that from like a Walmart or something like that. But here's the thing: if you want to cook and you need a pan, get yourself a pan. Like, there's if it gets you where you need to go, there is nothing wrong. You do not have to buy new. You can get used products. You can get, you know what I mean? Like, go shop at flea markets and thrift stores and whatever. Like, find yourself something. It is not important. It is not important. There's very little that you need to have the tippy top version of something to get, like, and that's the only way you can get certain results. Like with experience, with time, using a set of pans, like you will learn the best way to cook on them. And if you do it enough and practice enough, it is not a big deal. It is not. But a Vitamix though, okay, I will give you the Vitamix. The Vitamix is one of those things that like if you really want a silky smooth sauce or soup or smoothie, it's just such a high-powered motor that it is very expensive but very worth it. I'll give you the Vitamix. It gets me where I need to go. I say that about my Ford Focus. I was thinking car in my head. So you were here with me. Yeah. If it gets you where you need to go, just like a car. Doesn't have to be brand new. Doesn't have to be really expensive. It does its job. I have a lot of people that try to buy me really high-end stuff. And I'm like, look, this is a large kitchen for a mid-sized home. I will say that I did that on purpose. We got very lucky in being able to work with a builder to build this house in this community. We stumbled on it when they were first starting to break ground on it, and we were at a good point in our lives, and we were able to get in here before everything started getting really expensive, and we got very lucky. So I have this beautiful kitchen, but I still don't have all of this cabinet space. People have all of these crazy pull-out drawers and hidden coffee maker things and like whatever in these huge houses, in these palatial houses. And I don't have the space for that. It doesn't matter how much I like to cook. I still want the things that are basic things. I'm not going to buy, 4 million types of something because each one does something slightly different. I'm just going to buy one or two things and then use them in different ways. I would rather go for utility than I would for specialty. Aside from my potato ricer, there's very little in my kitchen that I have that I only use for one thing. Yes, you can use all-purpose flour for the dough instead of double O. You might need, I would tell you to still weigh to that 500 grams. I have in there 4 cups or 500 grams. All-purpose flour has a larger grain size than double O. So you are going to end up with less weight if you do the 4 cups. So stick with the 500 grams, weigh it out if you can, if you have a kitchen scale. Otherwise, you might want to use, say, 3 3/4 cup. And then if you feel like you need extra flour, if it's a little too wet, you can add in the remainder up to the 4 cups. But I would say to start with less on the all-purpose flour. And then you might actually, if you do end up using the 4 cups and you just dump them in and you're like, whatever, you might need a little extra water just to take care of the extra. The all-purpose flour will absorb more moisture than the double O will because it's a hard wheat and it has a slightly higher protein content, so it's going to absorb more moisture. Okay, we're going to deglaze maybe one more time. I don't think I need to do much more. See, so I was saying like this is plenty of liquid, right, from the jars. You really don't need a ton. This is almost done already. I'm going to turn this up just a little higher. And what I might do, once I get a color that I really want, I'll probably just turn this low and just let this kind of gently lose a little extra moisture. But this is already pretty, it's a little wet. You want it to almost like be tacky, but not wet on your fingers when you're touching. Like it's kind of hot. So for anybody who's making this at home, I have really thick skin on my fingers because I rock climb. So maybe don't immediately pull it out of the pan, put it on a plate and then touch it later. But you shouldn't have leftover, like a lot of leftover moisture on your fingers if you're kind of moving it around, rolling it around in your fingers. But it should be a little tacky. Like it still will be like stick to you. But it should not be like really wet. So you want to cook all of that moisture out. A cherry pitter is your only exception. I will grant you the cherry. I also have a cherry pitter. I bought that last year because I was using a straw, a metal straw to do it, and I was like, there has to be something easier. But again, I bought the cherry pitter. I bought a cherry pitter, but I keep seeing all those extra gadgets, right? Where it's like multiples and you like can push multiple through. And I was like, no, we don't, just the single. We don't need to be fancy. We can go one at a time. I don't need to I don't need to deep hit 9 cherries at a time. Yeah, cherry, that's a thing? Yeah. Behold, the cherry pitter. Do I have cherries in my freezer? I do. This is a cherry pitter. You put said cherry. Oh God, we can do this. Where am I? Here we go. Nope. Back here. We can put the cherry right in here, and then this metal prong here pushes the pit out through the bottom, and then the cherry is the only thing that's left. You take the cherry out, you stick it in a bowl, and then you get to eat a bunch of cherries without pits in them. But for years, I was just eating around the pits. I was like, whatever. And I'd just sit with a bowl and I'd like put a cherry in my mouth, spit a pit out, you know? What a time to be alive. Does it work for olives? You know, I don't know the answer to that. I don't feel like it would work as well because the pits in olives tend to stick really well to it. I feel like cherry flesh comes off of the pit pretty easy. That's a stone fruit, but olives, I feel like the pits stick a lot more. So it might not work as well. Plus the olive pits tend to be oblong. They're not like squat, almost circular. So that might not work as well for an olive. I'm not sure. Okay, so this is the color that I want it to be. I am there with color. And now I'm just gonna turn it down low. And I'm just gonna let it cook a little bit more of the moisture out because I deglazed a couple of times and it is a little bit wetter than I want it to be. So I'm gonna give like a really good scrape to the bottom of this pan. And then I'm just gonna let it sit. I'm gonna go check on the potatoes. And if the potatoes are close enough, I'll start rolling out my dough. I will be right back. Yeah, that's close enough. They're slightly warmer than room temperature, but I think that they're cool enough that I can start rolling, and by the time that I'm ready to go, will be in a good enough temperature for me to use. Using the microwave. Can you see me at the refrigerator in the reflection? That's funny. That's funny. Okay. I'm gonna move this off to the side. And just let that kind of fall into the background there. Where's my bench scraper? I thought I had it out. I lost it. Oh no! I didn't throw it away or anything, did I? Guys, that's important. What did I do with it? It started out over here. Now I don't know where it is. No. Oh God, it's sitting on white paper. We're fine. White bench scraper, white paper. We're good. I just have some sauerkraut here. I don't want to get into my dough. I want to scrape this off. You're gonna make sure that your surface is clean. or it's going to end up in your dough, and you'll have like pieces of whatever's on your counter in your dough. So I'm going to do a nice dusting. And then I'm going to break off some of this. If I need more, I'll have more. Okay. Now, the things you are going to need, moving kind of forward. I have it in the recipe, so typically we don't use this, but if you want to have like super uniform sizes, this is actually, if you want to have super uniform sized pierogi, I suggest this more for the potato than for the sauerkraut, but it's really up to you. If it's helpful to have like essentially the same volume every time you do it, you can use a cookie scoop. This is a number 50 cookie scoop. I don't believe this is standard sized. I don't think you can go into a store and just buy a 50. I think you have to get this online. The 24 scoops, which I believe are like, I think this is like 1.5 tablespoons, so like a 45 milliliter by volume size. I think standard is like a 1, is like this is in between the 1 and the 2 for the tablespoons, or for a 50 and a 30. So I guess this is 25.5 milliliters by volume. So this is like a good size. It's about 40 grams, 50 grams of filling by potato, and then like 15 to 20 grams of sauerkraut at a time. We just use spoons at home. You just kind of get used to the amount that you feel like you can put into a dough round. And once you get to a good place, you just kind of don't think about it and you're using a spoon. But you can use a tablespoon. I'll use both just to show you guys kind of how you can work with either. So that we can do that. I have a 3.5 inch, hold on, I have everything written down, 9 centimeter circle cookie cutter here. I guess it could be fancy, wavy, or just straight circle. I have other cookie cutters or like dough cutters that are for like specifically for biscuits and like thicker dough that are metal, but none of them are the right size. So we're using our plastic cookie cutter today. Why not? Again, if you can't use it for multiple things, like why? I'm not gonna do it. We're just gonna use a cookie cutter. But basically, what you're gonna want to do is you can make them super small. You don't have to use this size. This is just the size of a typical pierogi. Imagine half, right? So essentially, because you're folding your circle, you're folding it in half, and you're making it look kind of like a little dumpling shape, right? Where it's like a half moon kind of thing, a semicircle here. So what you want is the cut of your dough to be larger. You want the cut of your dough to be larger than what you are actually going to have the final cut be. So I like to use a ravioli press. We used to have Pampered Chef, they're literally pierogi makers, and they had like really fine teeth. But now everything is like a hand pie, and it's got like a really like elongated kind of like I don't know what to call them, sleeve or something like that, where it like has like a really elongated kind of outside around the outside of the pierogi where you kind of push all of the dough together, and it's not great. We like to have like very little extra dough once they're sealed, just because you want it to be all filling. Like, come on, the filling to dough ratio needs to be like super, super, a lot of filling to a little ratio of dough. It is just the vessel. The filling is the important part. So I use this guy. I don't know where. I think I found this in a kitchen store, in a local kitchen store. I'm sure you can find these online. They're just metal. It's just a ravioli press. You can find them as a square. You can find them as a circle. Obviously, we're using a circle here. The other thing that I use, and this is what I used to use before I found the pierogi press, I just used a cup. So I'll show you how to use a cup. I can also show you how to use a fork, or just doing it au naturel, the traditional way, with your fingers. And just sealing with your fingers. So we'll do that. Check on this real quick. Yeah, the smaller cutter. So basically, I'll show you guys when we get there. Basically, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be folding over, sealing kind of with your fingers, but then you use a press or something to really crimp and cut into the dough to actually ensure that that is sealed. Because you are using quite a bit of flour, and sometimes if there's like a thick piece, like chunk or like whatever of flour, like a clump of flour that gets in between the dough, it will unstick when you're boiling it, and then you have pierogi filling and dough all over the place, and we don't want that to happen. So it's really just like extra insurance to make sure that they're not going to split or open up when they're boiling. Will this be on the test? I mean, I guess the test is if you go to make it. If you never intend to make it, there will be no test. But if you decide to make this one day, then yes, this will be on the test. Okay, I'm getting to a point where this is really good. I'm just gonna hold this over. So you can see, like, it's really not sticky. It looks almost like if you had like coconut, right? Like we toasted some coconut. It's obviously softer than coconut, but it's kind of the same kind of texture, the way that it moves around when you're pushing it around the pan. Oops. And then I can touch that, and it's tacky, but not really moist. So we're going to turn this off now. That's going off. I'm going to unplug it. I got some sauerkraut. There we go. Okay, let's start rolling this. Yeah, the taste tester. He's not going to taste test the sauerkraut, but he'll taste test the potato ones. Okay. I'm going to roll this out. Give myself some space for filling. So you want this to be thin, but not so thin that you're going to end up breaking a hole in it, right? We don't want to really be able to see through it. But you do want it thin enough that it can stretch a little bit, or thick enough that it can stretch a little bit and get slightly thinner if you need it to, but thin enough that it's not going to be like too thick when it's cooking. And then again, you have that kind of off. You want a much larger filling to dough ratio. And so that's kind of what we're going for here. It's about right, actually. You're looking for it to be about a 1/16 of an inch thick, which is 0.16 centimeters. Really thin. So like if you have grout in your house, you have 1/8 of an inch grout, just look down at your grout and do half of that. Traditional grout is like 1/8 of an inch thick. Half of your grout is the thickness you want. Okay, so we're done. I'm going to go ahead and start cutting my circles. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut all of the circles and then peel the dough up. This dough can get reused. It's so soft that if you really wanted to just put it back together, put it underneath your wet towel and let it reincorporate, you can do that and then re-roll it out. It'll need about 30 minutes to come back together. But they will not be as soft the second go around because you've added flour to them and you've worked them a little bit more. So that gluten that has had time to kind of settle and relax has kind of come back up a little bit. You need to let it relax and rehydrate. But the added flour will change the texture slightly. So it's really up to you. You want to try to get your circles as close together as possible. So this is about 1/3 of the dough that I've made. And you can already see how many pierogi I can make. This one's gonna be a little oddly shaped, but we'll make it work. And we're done. Okay. And then you can just pull up your dough. And pierogi dough. So now let's make some pierogi. I'm gonna let that kind of come to, actually, I'm just gonna kind of put this into a clump. And I'm gonna fold it over itself. No, this is not time for you. I will call you. My daughter wants to make some with us, but I told her that I would call her when it is time. I'll do it when we finish the video and we're just kind of hanging out after with the live. So Kate will be on here in a little bit. Okay, we're gonna let that, we're gonna fold it into itself so that it kind of makes another new dough ball, right? So kind of like if you were shaping a roll or a pizza dough or something like that that you wanted to let sit and proof. And then you can just let that kind of resettle and rehydrate under there. I'm gonna get my potato filling. Which is now at a good point. I think I mentioned earlier about a tablecloth. So you'll notice, like, obviously, like dough, right? If it can sweat against a surface that is not floured, it is, like this one here, is gonna start to stick, okay? And we don't want that to happen. So the way that we do that, and I'm not entirely sure where I wanna be doing this work. Probably move this aside now. Let's move this over here. And then I'm gonna put this also on I'm gonna put this onto a pan to chill. If you wanna just put your sauerkraut directly into the refrigerator, honestly, it's better than what I'm doing here. And just let that chill in the fridge until it's about room temperature. You can do that. I'm gonna just spread this out and leave this at room temperature behind me and then come back to it when it's time to make a couple. So again, I'm just creating as much surface area as possible so that air can get to it and make sure that it cools off. I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm gonna let all of the countertops pull the heat right from that. And now I'm gonna turn this into my workstation, I suppose. So let's move all of this out of the way. Okay, we've got our filling. We've got all of our multiple utensils here. And I'm going to just kind of cover this space. Okay. Hopefully, with the filling on, this thing won't fall off the countertop and I'll have a nice space here to make some. Hey, hon, I'm gonna need you to move the camera. So this is already starting to stick. If you want to sift your flour. If you're going to put flour down where you're working, just get a strainer. Or if you have one of those fancy flour sifter things, those are cool too. I don't have one of those. This is fine for me. So essentially, I'm just going to scoop. This is a very flour heavy. Just prepare to have your house be like white. There's just going to be flour everywhere, and you just get used to it. Just be ready for it. I'm going to pick them up, and I'm going to put them over here before they all stick to my counter, and then I don't have access to any of the really nice dough that I just made. Okay. You can stack them as long as there's flour. They will start sticking to each other, but it takes a while if they're floured well. So if you are working pretty fast and they've still got a bunch of flour underneath them and they're not yet sticking, you can probably stack them and they'll be fine for a little bit. But we're just gonna kind of settle them around. But you can see how soft the dough is and how easy it is to stretch and move. Up. Okay, so now we have our next place. We've got a rolling station and a baking station, and then we're gonna actually have to start boiling some of them. Once you have about 8 to 10 made, you can have you have a secondary person in the house, you can start having that person boil them. Because I am a single solitary person, I'm gonna make this whole batch, and then I'm gonna get some water going behind me, and then I'll make some sauerkraut, and then we'll get those going as well. So you can kind of see the process of boiling. This is about to be loud because it is sparkling water. I apologize. Or if you want some ASMR, hey. Okay. Let's start making some of these. We tend, when we make these, so like today I'll make like 2 batches of these. So I'll do one with potato and then one with the sauerkraut. I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15. So I'll get about 30 just today. I'll have more dough than that. But essentially what we do is we have a table where people are making them. We have a table where they all get laid out, right? Because you can't boil. If you're boiling 8 to 10 at a time, even if you have 2 or multiple pots, you don't boil them as quickly as people are making them. But we make typically 500. I think the most we made was over 700 one year. So this is like a full production at my house. And so it is kind of necessary to have the tablecloths down. The tablecloth goes where you're setting them down while they're waiting for boiling, and it goes where you are making them. It's just a great way to keep your dough from sticking to a surface, to a non-porous surface. So, okay, we'll do a cookie cutter one first. Or not cookie cutter, a cookie scoop one. So there's that. You want to have flour. I'm saying this again. Flour is your friend. I'm just gonna take a scoop. Get flour on your fingers. For anybody who is currently making these with me at home, okay? You got a nice little potato ball there, okay? Oh, we are still over here, honey. Thank you. Stay here. Stay with me. I've got my husband moving the camera around so that it's always on the right place. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to make an oblong kind of oval, and then you're going to turn it into a half circle. So basically you're creating the inside shape of the pierogi, the one that you want. You're making that with your potato and cheese filling before you even start doing any shaping with your dough. You're going to take your dough. You can give it a nice little stretch if you think that it needs it. And you're going to set it down. You're going to put your filling. Okay, so you've got think about where your halfway line is, right? You're going to put this in the top half of your pierogi, but you're going to leave this lip here because that is what we're going to seal onto. You're going to take and you're just going to go up and over. If you have dough that is you feel like it's slightly too small, you might need a little stretching. It's not going to completely fit around, right? So see, if I just kind of laid this over the top, it doesn't quite go all the way down. So if you do have pieces that are like this, that are just a little too small for that, which I actually prefer because then it gets stretched a little bit more, and then again, less dough to filling ratio. What you're going to do is you're going to go up, you're going to pull gently, and then you're going to kind of push the filling back while you pull over the top. And then you just kind of press down with your fingers. You can do just 2 fingers. You can do like whatever. You can take your entire hand and kind of come in like a semicircle kind of thing around the outside and press down around the outside of your pierogi to make sure that this is sealed. Now, we need to make sure, this is what I said, this can be done, but I don't like having all of this dough. I don't like this. This is not nice looking. My perfectionism does not enjoy this. This is essentially a regular pierogi. Some people have been known to take it and they kind of do what you would do with a like a pie, where you kind of fold it over and you would like kind of crimp around the outside, and that can look really pretty if you're really good with pie crusts. That can be something that you do, or if you make like empanadas or hand pies or something like that at home, you may already know how to do that. It just, again, makes a thick dough around the filling, so it's just an extra large ratio of dough to filling. What we do is we will kind of cut this off. So I will use a pastry, or I will use this ravioli press. Essentially what you do is you press down. This is not the best tablecloth for this. Press down, pull up, and then there is your first pierogi. You can also, I'll make another one real quick. I'm going to just set this down on some flour. It should be okay for a little bit. You can, we'll do a spoon now. Just kind of pulling around the outsides. The inside is already pretty thin. I'm just pulling the outsides just a little bit more. We'll do a scoop, a spoon, pretty easy. Just about the same thing. I've got flour on my hands already. If it feels like it's too tacky, which if you're doing the American cheese and potato one, that can kind of get pretty tacky just because there's so much more moisture in that cheese because it's melty. Create our shape again, put it in the top, tuck up and over, seal with our fingers or our palms, however you feel like doing that. And then let's do a cup. I'm not going to do it on this because this is a little too, I've double folded it. So it's not, it's almost like if you were going to try to cut something on carpet, right? So it's like a little too soft. I need to have a hard surface to cut on. So if your cup, this one is too big. This one is too big for the surface of my pierogi. Can you, actually, I'll do this. We're fine. We'll put some underneath too. There we go. Now you can see. This is too big for the outside. If you take, instead of going straight down, if you take it and you kind of roll it. So we're going to start here, and then we're going to roll around the outside and then set it down. You'll get the same shape. So it'll take off the correct, and then you have the like a very symmetrical kind of situation here. There you go. So that's cup. You don't need to have a ravioli press. A plastic cup from home is fine. I would just say find something that feels like it can cut. Like if it's really rounded, even if you have like a glass cup and it's like super beveled or something like that, you're basically like pressing the dough instead of cutting through it. So it might be a little harder to disconnect that kind of like extra dough from the pierogi. And so it's probably in your best interest to just find something that feels like it could cut through. Plastic is usually better than glass. But you might have some nice glasses. Also, you do have to press. So like glass freaks me out. You can do it. You can do it if you really want to. Plastic just feels easier to me. But yeah, find something that has less of a bevel and is less rounded, and you know will cut through. Okay, so I'm just gonna move really quickly through these next ones so that we can get to the sauerkraut. I am going to make all of these. I'm gonna make all of these with potato so you can see what we're working with, and you can like watch several times, get a feel for how it's supposed to go, and then we'll do a number of the sauerkraut as well. Okay. Again, push, fold. I think I need to have like a little space here or something so that you guys can actually see me cutting these, because I can't have both options open. There we go. I prefer the ravioli press just because I think it's pretty to have like a design over the cup, but oh, that did not cut well. There we go. Okay, pierogi. Easy peasy. Everybody can do this. Okay. Next. Dollar store cups. Easy. Do it. Dollar store cups sounds great. How are we doing, Lindsay? I know you're doing the potato. How are you feeling about these? I'm making you. Oh, okay. Someone else. Kraut, some grainy mustard. Yeah, it sounds really good. We really like to eat our pierogi with sour cream. I'm just getting some of, so I've really heavily floured the surface. So you can see me kind of patting. I'm just getting some of the excess flour off of it. It's not super necessary. Also, you'll notice this is going to start cracking because these are going to start drying out. I may not actually be able to do all of these. When we're working, we have like a lot of people making these, like multiple people at a time. So you kind of have to work pretty fast, and I'm kind of stopping and talking and demonstrating and all of that. So it's not going quite as fast. Can there be a can of beer in this recipe? I mean, if you wanted to, you could deglaze your sauerkraut with some beer. There's nothing wrong with that. It's probably would taste really, really good. Or you could just drink while you're making them. I mean, that's an option too. Okay, so again, it's going to the top half. I'm leaving a little bit of a lip. I'm going to push, pull over the top, and then I'm going to press down. Okay. And we're going to take this and I'm going to roll it. I'm not going straight down. I'm rolling it around. If you want to go straight down, you're just going to have kind of like air pockets on the side of your pierogi. I can make one. Here, I'll make one that way. I'm drinking while you make them. Does that work? Yes. Going great. It's going, I can see why a few people would help to do each one of them. It's just, yeah, there's like a lot of steps. This is just a really fun, like, you've got friends, you've got family. It's meant to be like a holiday tradition. I think that's probably the reason. Like, not only because of like all of the floury mess, right? But all of the kind of like stations where like somebody is rolling their dough, somebody's making the pierogi, somebody's boiling the pierogi. That it just ends up being easier as a thing to do with friends or family. It's probably why we only do it once or twice a year. Bethany, I will be doing some sauerkraut in a couple of minutes, so be ready. You decided to go hard mode today. I think you mentioned that you were using some mashed potatoes, I believe, with some cheese, Bethany, wherever you are. But I feel like you also asked about sauerkraut, so you're doing both. Oh, I didn't follow my own instructions. I was going to make one where I didn't roll around the outside of it so you guys could see what that looked like. I'll do this one, I promise. Kind of going back and forth between the scoop. There's no more leftover sauerkraut this time. Oh, okay. Got it. Oh, you make homemade sauerkraut with extra caraway? Ah, I bet that's really good. You can come by anytime. Would be very welcome. Okay, so if I went straight down, try to center it. And if I went straight down instead of rolling around the outside, you'll see I've got these little like wings where there's like pockets of air. And those will flatten and stick to each other, and then you'll just have extra dough. And it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's just something that, like, you know, as a person that, like I said, makes hundreds of these, you kind of just learn the ways to make it so that it's like a perfect bite every time. And that's just one of them. You'd give me some kraut? Yay. Thank you for sharing. Do I have any questions? Don't forget the no-cut one. The no-cut one, I did that kind of first when I said this is what it looks like when it's not cut. We can do a fork though. Here, we can do, so basically that's just a no-cut, right? Is just make sure that you're really pressing down well and that you're sealing it really well, and that's a no-cut. You can also, if you really want to make sure that it's pressed, but you don't want to use the cup, or you don't want to use the ravioli, you can also do something that looks kind of like that, which is also fine. Here, we'll give it a nice little, we'll keep the design, but we'll cut off a little bit of the excess. You can mix and match. That's pretty. Looks kind of like a sunrise. I'm fine. We're fine. I'm going to move these. I don't want them to get stuck to the countertop. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh yeah, I can definitely start making. Okay, so I'm going to start heating up a pot of water. You typically can boil in like a soup pot. You can boil 8 to 10 at a time. So let's do that. Move this guy off my stovetop so that I can move a pot back. I'm going to use the same pot that I boiled the potatoes in because, like, why not? I don't want to use an extra pot for no reason. So let me just give that a quick scrub and rinse. And I will be right back with you. If you don't feel like you can, I'm just going to talk with you guys while I'm off camera. If you don't feel like you can keep an eye on the boiling pierogies while you're also rolling dough and making them, that's okay. You can, whoops, that was loud. You can just keep them sitting on a cloth that's been floured. If they sit, I would tell you probably every 30 minutes or so to flip them over. Because even though they're on a cloth like this, they're still going to start sticking at a certain point when the flour has been like absorbed into the dough and into that inside filling. And you're still going to want to make sure that that they're not getting like too dry. Because also, like you've noticed, you start to get a little bit of cracking in the dough if it sits for a really long time out. That's why we have this covered in our main dough piece here. That's how we have it covered in our damp cloth. So it is important to make sure the dough doesn't dry out, and that also includes pierogies that have been made. Now, it doesn't need to, you're not stretching it extra, you're not manipulating it extra, but it will get sticky and it will get cracked. And sometimes if it's really thin, it will kind of like also make that a problem when you're boiling. So what you're gonna do is just like every 30 minutes or so, if they're out for a while, just take them and flip them over. Just take them and kind of do one of these and just give them a little flip. And then 30 minutes goes by and you can re-flip them again. Just like that. Right, let's fill this up with some water. I'm also going to salt this water just like you would if you were cooking pasta. You want it to be about halfway up your soup pot. There you go. Okay, and then I'm gonna turn on my burner. I'm gonna use the one back here. They're just gonna be boiling. I am going to bring this to a boil. So I am putting that up on some power boil. In a couple of minutes, we'll have that going. Where's my salt? I'm gonna salt the water. Doesn't have to be salty like the sea, but just salt it so the dough takes on a little bit more flavor. There is already salt in the dough, so it's not super important. I just, just me. That's a me thing. Kitchen is not too bad. Remember, I didn't have a ton of ingredients, and I am reusing things, so it's actually not too bad. I think all of this would fit in the dishwasher pretty easy. Now, cleaning the flour, that is a task. I'm fairly contained. I'm fairly contained. Washed my hands. I don't have flour on my hands anymore. Okay. I feel like this might be too much for this one. Let's do a different guy. It's getting dry. Yeah, we're too dry. I'll make a smaller filling. This one's not stretching anymore. So once they get a little dried out, they're not going to stretch as well because they're not as hydrated. So just do a little bit less filling, and then you don't really need to stretch. And you can just kind of pull over the top and press down, and you're fine. It'll just be a little smaller. I feel like I'm not in the right direction for the camera, though. I might cook these up as potato pancakes later for the remaining filling. Yeah, I am also not hydrated. I've not been drinking enough for the amount of talking that I'm doing. Okay. Up and over. Oop, that did not stick on this side. So something else to do, we call this quality control, is double check. So like after you've finished compressing and cutting the dough around the outside, check to make sure that any of them didn't open. Sometimes if they catch like this one did, it won't close all the way. Even though you've pressed it, you kind of like reopen it. Because remember, we've got a lot of flour. So sometimes the dough doesn't stick quite perfectly. And in that case, what you're going to do is just pinch it between your fingers. And then you can recut. And so now this is good. If you want to not use a surface, you don't have a surface that's big enough and you're just kind of like wanting to make them, you've got like a stack of dough, you've got all of these guys laid out here, you've got these in your hand and you don't have a surface to kind of do on, you could also, this is another way to kind of traditionally make a pierogi or a pierogi, make a pierogi, make a pierogi. What you're gonna do is kind of the same thing. You're gonna shape that filling. I feel like I keep making them the same size, knowing full well that I'm supposed to be making these smaller. You're gonna shape it, you're gonna hold it in your hand, and then you're actually gonna set it in the middle. And you're gonna come to the top, and then you're just gonna pinch. And pull and pinch. Pull and pinch. And then you can, in fact, have the same way that I was kind of holding and pulling down. This can also be considered like a traditionally made, handmade I should say, a handmade pierogi or pirogue. But like I said, I just really like having these look really pretty. This is a me thing. Are we boiling? Almost. Cool. Okay. We just got here. What's in the filling? It's farmer's cheese and potato and a little bit of creme fraiche. I just feel like there's more control if you have it on a flat surface than if you're trying to make one like in your hand. But that's a me thing. Okay. Let's do another one. Soon we will have sauerkraut. Because I want to make sure that I'm showing you guys the dough one more time. So we'll roll out one more batch of dough. I'll probably make like 4 or 5 sauerkraut and then we'll call it a day. You'll get to see the finished product boiled the best way. So like this is traditionally what we would do on Christmas Eve. Catholics also, just like Italians, right? Or Polish people, just like Italians, because a lot of us are Catholic. We do not eat meat on Christmas Eve. So Italians will have the Feast of the Seven Fishes. We do potato and cheese and sauerkraut pierogi, and usually like a mushroom soup or a split pea soup or something like that. Some beet soup, do some borscht. We stick to this. But we eat them boiled on Christmas Eve. And then Christmas morning, we pan fry them. They are delicious. So you can boil. This one might break in the pot. We'll see what happens. This one looks like it got really thin. You can boil them. If you want, you can microwave up, pan fry up some butter and onions together and make like an onion butter. That's really nice. And then we eat them with sour cream after they're boiled. But you can also, once they've cooled off a bit and the dough, we're boiling, the dough starts to kind of re-solidify, right? So it's like it's really soft when it's nice and boiled. It's got a lot of moisture in it. And then it releases that moisture as it steams and cools, and the dough will actually harden slightly. That is then when you can pan fry it. It's already got a bunch of butter on it. You'll see me working with this in a second. Butter is really helpful to keep them from sticking to each other when you're storing them, especially when you're going to fry them up. It's like really nice to have them kind of surrounded by butter. Okay. I know I just set that down, but we're gonna get a little more flour. Okay, let's do some of these. I'll throw this away. You put them basically, I like to saute up onions first. So I'll saute up a bunch of onions and get them nice and translucent and browned and really yummy. And then I will throw either butter in the pan, or if these are coated enough in butter, I'll just toss the pierogi right directly into the pan. And then you essentially pan fry them until they're nice and golden brown on the bottom. You flip them over, get them golden brown on the top. And then you get like a really nice like crunch. They're warm, they're like nice and crunchy and buttery and delicious. And that's honestly my favorite way to eat pierogi, but this would be like traditionally for Christmas, you boil them and you eat them boiled. So I'm gonna take, let's do 8. We're gonna do 8. You want this to be a gentle boil. If you have too much agitation in your pot, they're going to break apart. And we don't want that. They're gonna cook for 6 to 8 minutes. This isn't one of those like when it floats, you take it out thing. You have to let it cook kind of all the way through. And it warms the filling back up too. Like the dough will be cooked in a couple of minutes, but you want that filling to also be warmed all the way through. Brown butter sage gnocchi though, yeah. Well, that's why you have a potato ricer, so you can make gnocchi, right? No, this is the same oven. No, oven has not changed since this house is here. For a potato pancake, would you just fry up the filling or add anything to it? Add flour. Add flour to the filling, a little bit, and then yeah, and then you can. It's kind of like look up knish, or honestly, a tatty scone would work as well. Look up those, Lindsay, if you're looking to use leftovers. I do want to see some bubbles. You want to see some bubbles. You want to see some gentle movement going on in your pot, but you don't want a rapid boil. That's kind of what I'm looking for. That's good. Okay, now let's roll out another batch of dough. And we'll do some sauerkraut. Here's our chilled sauerkraut. These guys out of the way. This is already pretty much reincorporated. Okay, and now let's do another batch of this. I honestly should be prepping the pan that these are going to go into. Do that in a second. I've got a pan back there. We typically, because we make so many of them, we'll get like the aluminum foil, tin foil. What are they called? Like the pans you would use that are like, oh my God, temporary pans. Why is my brain not throwaway? Single use, disposable. That's the word I'm looking for. A disposable pan. But since I'm home and I'm here, I've got this guy. You want to have a pan with high sides. A cookie tray or a baking sheet is not going to work. You want to have something you can do like a brownie pan or a cake pan if you want. I've got this rectangular one that I use for cinnamon rolls and stuff. I'm going to add some butter into it. So I got this big thing of butter. You got some softened butter, room temperature butter, and I'm just going to kind of splat. There's about 2 tablespoons there, so about 28 grams of butter into that vessel. And then when the pierogi come out, they're going to go in here, and you're just going to shake the pan around. I'll do that for you. While we're going, I'm also going to take out a spider. If you would prefer, you can also use a slotted spoon of some kind. Really up to you. These are about done. I'm gonna give these another minute or two, and then we're gonna be ready. Okay. All right, let's cut out some shapes. Oh, that might be a little thin. That's okay. I'm a professional. That might be a little thin. We'll make it work. And then I'm going to cut my circles just like I did before. And we'll do some sauerkraut. Should be good. It was full battery when I turned it on. Oh, really? Okay. Okay. So we've got some more rounds. Pulling up our dough. Going to do the same thing I did before. If you want to reuse it, if not, just throw it away. Just throw it away. You're going to have a lot of excess dough during this process. That is okay. If you really don't want the dough to go to waste, you can do what we sometimes do when we were younger. Not so much anymore now that everybody's grown up, but maybe the kids will take over in the future. All of the leftover scraps of dough that I just threw away would get left in a bucket. And then we would have a dough fight in the backyard. It was great. Good times. Doesn't have to go waste. You can have fun with it if you really want to. Okay, I'm going to move these up and over. I need to get the pierogi that are cooking behind me out. They can cook a little longer. They're not like nothing's really going to happen to them, but I prefer not to have them just going. Okay, so let's take these out. I'm just going to, you don't have to see what's going on. I'm just going to scoop them out and put them in the pan, and then I'll bring the pan to you. Okay. Oh, you did? So it's over here? Okay. Oh, you put it over the cloth? Okay. Okay. Your water will get cloudy as you cook more and more pierogi. That's just because they've got a lot of flour on it, on the outside of the pierogi. That's okay. They're delicate, but not as delicate as you think. So basically, I'm just melting the butter. It's fine. Can you pull back so they can see more of what I'm doing, though? Because I feel like this is super close, like close in. Good. Okay, I'm going to set it down, though. Here, I'll do this. I'm going to dump the rest of the pierogi into the pot behind me. Et voila. Okay, let's see. Okay, we'll let those go. Okay, so let me pull this more into frame here. Good? Good enough. Okay, so I basically have this butter is like now melted, right? And so what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna get both sides covered in butter. You can do that any way you see fit. You wanna use your fingers. I tend to do that, but again, like I said, I the heat doesn't really bother me. I think an offset spatula is a pretty good use here. You could use a fork, but you have to be careful with the tines because you could poke through the dough, and we don't want to do that. So just give them a flip. I'll do this so that you guys can kind of see just how that works. Just get underneath it and flip it. Or you could pick it up. I mean, it's up to you, but I just want to pick everything up and just flip it over. It's just faster, but they are hot because they did just come out of boiling water. So, oop. There we go. And then the same thing, you're just kind of move it around. And these are your pierogi. And you can now eat these. You can put some salt, you can use some sour cream. I will be having a couple of these maybe at the very end of this stream. But I am going to now move these to a plate. You can, at this point, if you're not going to freeze the pierogi, you can kind of just stack them. Remember, they're covered in butter. They're not going to stick to each other anymore. That's the point. The butter is for flavor and so that they don't stick to each other. Because the dough, when set next to each other, if you're storing them, if you're keeping them in a warmer because it's Christmas Day and it's going to be another hour till everybody eats, and you've got them in the warm setting on your oven, then that dough, without anything that's going to slick the outside of them, the dough will stick, and you will have all of the pierogies stuck to each other, and nobody wants that. So that is the purpose, the main purpose of the butter, other than it tasting really good. And essentially what you would do is you have, at your station, you boil, you kind of coat with butter, and then you have a secondary vessel that is the kind of storage container. And you would essentially do this. So you would have your pierogi, and you're going to kind of stack them up against each other, just like this. And they'll just go in a tray and kind of just be stacked like that. Kind of like if you were going to open up Oreos, right? And they're just sitting all there ready for you. And that's kind of how they would be stored. Now, if you are going to freeze them, dough really doesn't like to be frozen. It likes to break and break apart and come apart in clumps and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter about the butter. So the best thing that you can do is put them on, if you want to use, honestly, anything, any surface is probably fine. Something like this, if you wanted to freeze them on something like this, you can. The butter will help pull off, but it will not help them from sticking to each other. I prefer to put them on a silicone, like a Silpat or a silicone baking sheet, so that you can kind of peel them off like a sticker, but you don't want them touching. Okay, so now they're going to freeze individually, and then you can cook them individually. And you can cook them, you can reboil them, or you can take them right from the freezer and put them onto a saucepan or a saute pan, and you can pan fry them right from frozen. Yeah, they're great, but you definitely don't want them touching, because if you had any kind of overlap, like imagine you've got even just like a corner overlap, right? And then this is frozen, and you go to break this, and the whole corner sticks to this one. Now you've got an open pierogi here, and you're going to have filling coming out as it reheats, and you don't want it to do that. So when you freeze them, you want to make sure that they are not touching. And if you want to save space, or save you want to save space in your containers and not have a single layer on every container, you can get a deep lasagna pan or something like that, set them up like this, and then just put some parchment paper down in between each layer. And that will also be helpful. You could do a silicone mat in between each layer. That's also fine if you really feel like doing that, if you have enough at home to do that. That's absolutely usable. But the parchment, we use parchment paper at home. It just seems to work really well. Do not use wax paper. It does not do well in the freezer. And it does, the parchment paper is coated in silicone, if that's helpful. So it's a little nonstick, which is great. So parchment paper is the go-to. Aluminum foil will stick and tear, and that is also not great. So if you want to use another silicone mat, sure. Parchment paper is easier. It's really up to you what you want to do, but this is essentially how you have them stored when you're freezing them. I'm going to put them on a plate because I would really like to eat a few. But I am going to make some sauerkraut. I'm setting these to the side because I have butter in this pan still. I did quite a bit of butter, but it's going to last through like a batch. And if you need extra butter, if you feel like there's not enough in the pan to coat, you can just add some more butter. We go through a lot of butter. We go through a lot of butter on Christmas Eve. That's for sure. Can you freeze before boiling? I've never done that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't think that I would recommend that. I don't know what that would do to the dough. I feel like you need that dough. You need all the protein of the dough to really shrink up and like to gel, to shrink, and to get harder so that like I don't know what freezing the dough and then trying to peel that off when it hasn't cooked. Like, I'm not sure what that would do. We've never done it that way. If somebody here has done that, then it would be great to know. And I will tell chat if somebody like has done that and says, yeah, that works. But otherwise, I've never done that. I don't know if I would recommend that just because I don't have expertise in that. So I can't say yes or no. There is never enough butter. True. I agree. Just did a taste test for the first boiled potato filled. Very pleased. Yay. I'm glad. I'm so glad you guys like it. Can confirm. Zelos, were you cooking with me too? Maybe. Fresh boiled would be more fluffy, whereas frozen might have a chew. Yeah, like you would feel like you'd have to cook it so much longer. I honestly don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I wish that I could help more. I've never done it that way. And I haven't experimented with that either. Okay, so for sauerkraut. Okay, so we're flaky, but we're still tacky. That's what we were going for. I'm going to pull this closer to me, I guess. Let's make some room. Okay, we're flaky, but we're still tacky. And the tackiness is great because what that means is that you can take it in your hand and you can squeeze and it makes kind of a similar shape to what we were going for. There you go. Kind of a similar shape with what we were working with, the potato filling. Fair warning, this can be slightly dense. If you are not a sauerkraut person, I really do think that you should mix the filling with something else like mushrooms or onions. I love sauerkraut. I am fully here for this. But yeah, just give it a really good squeeze between your palms. If you feel like there's too much, you can break off, reshape. It's fine, but it will start to fall apart. It is still shaggy. It is not potato. It is not cheese. And it will, if you move this even a bit, it'll start to come apart and start to fall apart. And so that's just something to kind of be aware of when you are making these. But it's the same thing, right? So you get a kind of a half circle shape. If you can make it, you go up, you go over. I'm seeing, actually, before I do this, I'm seeing some that has flaked off, and I don't want that to be stuck in my in the excess part of the dough. So do the same thing, and then you press. Okay, we're gonna grab, actually, I wanna use a cup so I can tell the difference between potato and sauerkraut. We'll use, you'll be able to see it, the texture inside the dough will look different between the sauerkraut and the potato. And the coloring will be different. Obviously, the sauerkraut is brown and the cheese and potato are either like a light yellow, orange color, or they're white. But yeah, so there's your first sauerkraut. I know it seems easy, but it is actually hard mode pierogi. Okay, we've got these done behind me. So I'm going to move these guys into this pan. My son is going to be very excited to eat these. He loves pierogi. because I don't think I could eat all of these by myself. I'm sure it'll be very happy to join. Okay. I'm gonna add a little bit more butter. Like 5 extra grams of butter. And then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna give her a swirl. Get them nice and coated on one side. And then flip them over for the other. Oh, I mentioned earlier, the flour on the outside of the pierogi will make the water a little cloudy. That's okay. But if you can really see like clumps and particles of flour, and it's getting like so hazy that it almost starts to look white, just refresh your water, pour it out, start new. Just start new. So that you're not boiling your pierogi in like extra starch. It's just unnecessary. And sometimes it can like flavor it a little bit, and we don't want to do that. So once it starts to get like super, super thick looking with flour, you can go ahead and change that out. Okay. And there's our second batch of white. And now we're going to do, I'm only going to do like, I'll do like 5 of the sauerkraut, and then we can go ahead and end stream. Because I'm essentially done. I'm done with all of the making, enough that everybody kind of knows what they need to do. Because I'm ready to eat these. Ready to eat these. Like if you realize, I guess for those who are here with me today live, it is January 5th today. And I did say we make these on Christmas Eve. So I actually have about 60 of these already in my freezer. And this is just extra. So I don't really need to make all of these batches. If it were a day, if this were like a couple months since the last time I made them, I probably would make all of these. But really, I'm just gonna eat the sauerkraut as a side and make the potato, like probably either just eat with the potato filling with a spoon, or like I said, make them into kind of like a potato pancake. Because it's not necessary. I have so many. You can't go wrong having a ton, but yeah, see, so this is like falling apart. I'm gonna just add and squeeze. I find that just like squeezing in between your fingers against the top of your palm gives you a pretty good shape. And then like, so just some gentle compression gives you what you need. But like, if you start trying to manipulate it too much, it's just gonna start falling apart all over the place. The sauerkraut ones can be finicky. Okay, we'll do another one. Up, over, press. And then cup. I'm gonna spin it around. And then there's our second one. Okay. Do another batch. I don't have the cookie scoop anymore because I used it for the potato. I'd have to clean it. But essentially you would just kind of like scoop into, right? So just like fill it up and then put it on your hand, and it would just come out and kind of like an open, you can't even see what I'm doing. I'm sorry. So you would essentially scoop into the cookie scoop, pour that, like upend that into your hand, and it's going to come just really loose like this. And you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to make a little pocket and just press. Okay, and then that gives you the basic shape of what you're looking for. Set this down. But really make sure that you're checking around your edges. Sauerkraut really likes to break open when it's boiling. It really likes to get stuck between the dough. So just make sure you're really actively checking around where you're about to fold into. And unlike the potato, you really have to fold the dough up and over without really manipulating the sauerkraut. Because like I said, like it's loose. Once it starts kind of falling apart and kind of declumping, it's difficult to kind of push back in and reshape. So your best bet is to like really fold the dough up and over and not like with the potato, you can kind of push that center potato in while you're folding the dough over. But with these guys, you kind of can't do that. So let's do another one. Okay, they're starting to stick to my countertop. Some more flour. Okay. We'll do another one. How many should I do? You want one more, two more? What are you thinking? Do we feel like we got it or do we feel like we need a little bit more? Do I like kraut that still has a crunch or is fully gone funky? Honestly, I like all cabbage. Yes. The answer is yes. All right, up, over, press. Okay, and then the cup. Press around the outside. The seal. And there we go. Do one more. Oh, kraut or kimchi. I know I'm Polish, but I'm gonna say kimchi. Kimchi's so good. Does that take? Did I lose my Polish card? If I say kimchi. Immediately get disowned by my own culture. Okay, same thing. Got like a handful here, probably a little less. I'm gonna push that into the pocket of my hand and then wrap my fingers around, give it a good squeeze. Okay. Press, press, press. Ooh, we're sticking. That one's stretched. Okay. Okay, let's cook these. Nobody requested another one, so we're gonna stop there. I'm gonna cook these guys. We're gonna boil these right now. Okay. And then I'm gonna move the pierogi that are in my buttered pan onto this plate right here. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to stay in frame because you had that second camera view up. And I got a nice little plate of pierogi. Oh, that picture. Look at that. Whew. That is it right there. I'm ready to, I want to eat one. Oh, that was weird. Okay. Where did my salt go? Let's do this. I'm going to get a fork. I'm going to use this fork. I will probably make the rest of this, but I'm going to eat right now. Okay. Enjoy. For those of you who cooked with me, I know some of you have already started eating these. There's our filling. It's nice. You can cut through with a knife or a fork. I meant to say fork. Mmm. Mmm. That's really good. There you go. You did it. All in one day. You don't have to do it all in one day. You can make the fillings the night before, come back to this, like have them all made and boiled one day, and then you can freeze them and even cook them the next day. Like this could be a multi-day thing if you don't want to do everything at once, but you can in fact make them in one day if you really wanted to, in just a couple of hours. Several. Oh, that's so good. Okay. We'll move this to the side. I think we're almost at a good place. I'm going to flip these a little bit. Okay. Into our butter pan. Slosh them around. Literally the same thing that you just did with the potatoes. Do the same thing with the sauerkraut or potato and cheese. Whichever version you may do. You can come up with whatever you want. This is very akin to ravioli, dumpling, like make your filling your own. I think somebody asked earlier if you can do sweet ones. Yes, prune. Prune is traditional. I've also seen blueberry. You can probably do like a Danish style something if you wanted to do like a guava and cream cheese or like whatever. You could definitely make a sweet version. Okay, are you ready for this? So this year, we decided that we were gonna try out a new flavor. Cause like, why not? Why do the same thing every year? It's nice to have the traditional flavors, but it's also really fun to have fusion-y kind of things. And my brother did a crab rangoon pierogi, and it was actually really delicious. He used cream cheese and crab with a K, some onions and some garlic and a little bit of soy sauce, and some ginger, and they turned out absolutely delicious. We made a dipping sauce for them, and we were just like eating them the way that you would like a pot sticker. They just weren't like, we didn't fry them, right? So it's basically the same thing. And they were really good. And sweet potatoes is a great idea. I actually wanted to do a sweet potato version. I actually have the ingredients here in my house. I was planning on doing some like recipe testing on that one to see what I could come up with. But in my mind, I was thinking some boiled sweet potato and then some brown butter and sage with a mild cheddar. I feel like that would be really nice. To kind of stay within the bounds of something that is traditional, but give it a little bit of extra. So I may do that. Maybe sometime in the near future, you might see that show up, or maybe we'll add that in for next year during Christmas. I'm not really sure. But yeah, prune and Anissa's traditional one in your family always has at least one plate. Nice. Called core. Don't know how it's actually spelled, just how it's pronounced. Nice. Those sound good. You got to have a digestif, right? The prune is just perfect. Okay. I'm going to eat one of these too, just so you can see what the inside looks like when they're done. I feel like I should pan fry one too, but this is all we have time for today. So Here's the sauerkraut. And you'll see that it opens up quite a bit. So like if you're worried about like the compression that you're doing when you're forming the shape to go in, once it starts boiling, it's gonna like all of the moisture and stuff that gets in there is gonna reopen that up. And that's gonna just be like really nice and flaky on the inside. And you can see like you don't have like pockets where it's just dough. Like there's a really good healthy amount of sauerkraut in that. And it's just the way that I like to make them. I feel like it's better. Sometimes you get like really flat sauerkraut ones because it just doesn't have enough filling in it. And this I find is like super helpful just to get like a good amount of filling. So cheers. Mm. 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 I love caraway. And it's nice and toasted and sweet. It like sweetens it up a little bit. Like the Bavarian is already kind of sweet. And then getting that nutty caramelized, like just makes it a little less tart and milder, and it's really nice. Mm. Mm. I do want some sauerkraut or some sour cream with these. Mm. Okay. That was really tasty. Thank you for coming to my mukbang. I'm going to save these guys for my family. We'll probably finish the plate in the next 30 minutes. I guess if anybody has, if you stumble across this video in the future and you have any questions, like I said, if it wasn't answered during the process of today, of the last several hours, go ahead and drop a comment. And I will be looking at comments for this video over the next couple of days and in the future, so I can answer any questions you might have. You can also find me on my website at alittlespoon.com. You can send me a comment or a question there. I do get emails right from that contact form in the contact me page. I also have an Instagram. It's at _little_spoon. You can DM me from there. Literally multiple ways to contact me if you have any questions about anything that you see today. If you have any requests, if you have other cooking questions about science or other recipes that are on my website or on my Instagram, happy to help at any time. My website, you will notice, does not have ads. That is on purpose. I loathe ads, as I'm sure everybody else does. And the way that I can keep ads off my website is with all of the wonderful people who support my Patreon. I do have a Patreon. It is not solely support. If you want it to be just support, you're welcome to subscribe on Patreon and just be that person that lurks all the time. That is absolutely fine if you are that person. But it also acts as a really fun way for me to have an even closer relationship with the people who really, really enjoy kind of what I'm doing here and want to support to the nth degree and just be a part of the process and a part of this journey that is my food blog and cooking stream. We have a private Discord, which is basically just like a place where you can go that's got a bunch of different channels. We talk about travel and where to go to eat when you travel. We talk about the things that we're cooking, the restaurants we're going to, beers that we're having, food that we're having, desserts, whatever that looks like. And then a lot of the times I ask a lot of questions of the people that are in that Discord. I actually was working with them and asking their opinion on business cards just this week and sending them a bunch of different things to look at. They usually have a lot of say in upcoming recipes and a lot of say in which recipes are going to be done on these cook-alongs. So if you want to be a little bit more a part of the community, more so than just what you get here, what you get free online or what you get to do kind of during our lives, that's a great way to kind of get even more into the community. And it was really great having you guys here today. I hope that you can take this with you and maybe have your own little tradition if this is something, especially with the pierogi. It is just such a traditional food for us Polish people at Christmas time. If this is something that maybe you've wanted to do but you didn't do it with your family when you were younger and you've wanted to learn. I really hope that this is helpful for you. Or if you already make these, but you didn't make the specific kind and you want to go ahead and try, or you just want to learn how to do this, I guess, a different way. I don't know. I hope that this is helpful. And I hope that you'll check out some of my other cook-alongs and some of my other recipes. Thanks very much. Bye, everybody, from the Little Spoon Kitchen. I'll see you guys next time.